there any items? No.
We're grateful for this new artwork, and
We will hear
the
more about
rotation of
that as well.
good.
I just had a quick note. A couple weeks ago, there was a gentleman who came in with some water issues up the canyon. I was able to get in touch with him, and he said that he had talked to some of those present, including Mr. Wilkie, about just what he needed, and was able to get it taken care of through other means. So I appreciate the community members for helping in that regard, where the city had its hands tied somewhat.
Thank you. All right. We will now move to staff comments. We'll start with Bittman. I lied. We're going to start with Bittman. Then Steve, then you.
So I came to ask permission tonight. Every year we budget money for elections. Our budget this year for elections is $30,000. The county runs our elections for us. They've done that for a very, very long time. The costs to the county have been going up, and they've been passing those along to us. We finally got the bill this year for last year's elections, and it's 44 and some change, 42 and change. So with your permission, I will overspend that budget, and when we do the final budget revision of the year, we will backfill it. Okay. I figured we could either ask for forgiveness later or permission up front, and I'm trying something new and doing permission up front. When I was a little kid, it would have been different, but
That's laudable.
Do we actually make a motion or
No.
if
just,
you're okay with that,
yeah,
please let me know. If you're not okay with it, then we'll go through a budget revision process now, but we got to pay the bill.
no,
Right.
it's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Steve. And one thing while he's coming up, for anyone who is here, will you make sure that you did sign in on the computer before you came in case you didn't? That way we just have a record for the minutes. I know there's a lot of new faces here tonight. So.
Thank you, Steve Decker, Cedar City Library Director. The new art that is up is the work of Nick Freud. He will not be able to be here this evening because he's tending his shop. It doesn't close till 6. Many of you know Nick. Let me just give a quick bio of him. He says, I began my career as an artist at the age of 2, completing my first masterpiece on the back of my mother's antique family heirloom chair with a stick of butter. After that, I did the normal things people do growing up and always had some form of art in my life, either drawing, painting, or sculpting at different intervals. After graduating from high school in 1988, I joined the Utah National Guard to help pay for college and attended classes at what was then SUSC, but did not finish my degree. I lived in Salt Lake for 15 years, working first as a draftsman and then up the ladder to project management and then upper management for a large structural steel fabricator and erector. This lifestyle, however, was not very appealing, and I missed the life and scenery around southern Utah, so I decided to return and pursue a business of my own that would allow me to paint every day, leading me to opening Color Country Art Supply in Cedar City. He did that in August of 2014. He says, I feel fortunate that I can paint, draw, and sculpt every day, and that it leads me to a place of peace in my life that no other form of activity has given me. I truly hope you enjoy these paintings and that you find pleasure as you look at them. These works will be up for about 90 days, and then we'll change those out. I'm going to give a shameless plug for a program that we do at the library every Wednesday, and I'll be leaving to go to the program as soon as I'm finished here. Every Wednesday evening, we do a program called Character Sketches, and in that program, we take characters out of books. This year, we've expanded it, books, movies, TV, or video games, and we dress live models as those characters. This is one of Nick's paintings of one of those characters. This is Santiago from Old Man and the Sea. And as you go out the door on this side, this will be one of 4 works that are hanging there that have come out of that Character Sketches program that is now entering its 3rd year. And some of you have graciously modeled for. We appreciate that. That is every Wednesday night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve.
And I'll say before I had to be here on Wednesday nights, my wife would attend those regularly as well, and really enjoyed that program. And it was a great outlet for her. And I appreciate that you do that for the community.
We appreciate her being there. She's actually modeling for us coming up here in a little while. I don't know if you knew that or not.
No, she didn't tell me.
Then you don't know it from me. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to our crime data evaluation partnership with SUU.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, good evening. Darren Adams with the Police Department. As you probably recall, for the last almost year, I've had Sergeant Pollock send you crime data that is extrapolated from our Spillman records management system. It's not all complete. It's not perfect, but crime data and targeted enforcement is important for any community as we try to look at where the trends are and how we deploy our resources appropriately. And so that's always been something that's been very important to us, but we realize we've been handicapped in that regard. So we're excited to partner with SUU, Dr. Seung-Jung Park, and soon to be Dr. Laney Smith. Approached me. Laney was actually an intern of mine back when I served in the position where Sergeant Pollock is now. So we feel like we've helped mold her to some degree, maybe a small portion. But they approached us. Dr. Park is just going to give a brief presentation here in a moment about what he has done in other places and what he will hopefully do for us to gather data realistically, and then also to be able to paint a picture of where the crime is and hopefully predictive policing in the future as far as where the crime trends may go. It's very cutting edge and exciting. So I'll introduce Dr. Seung-Jung Park and Laney Smith to come up and just take a few minutes.
Hi, well, he's giving those to you all. I'm Laney Smith.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm there. I'm Laney Smith, Southern Utah University, the Department of Criminal Justice and Political Science. That's actually the other way, but should be anyway. So I'm more the facilitator on this project with my connections with the police department, my history there, but really excited to be helping in this avenue. Dr. Park is new to us this year, and we're really excited that he's wanting to get so involved with the community and help our local agencies out. So with that, I will turn it to him.
Hi. My name is Seung-Jun Park, and I'm from Fairfax, Virginia. And I just got here last year, and I'm very excited to live and work with our colleagues here. So today, I'd like to show some of the crime information with you. And my goal is trying to work with the community to identify crime and trying to prevent crime. So first of all, we met with Chief Adams to collect crime data because make sure we use real crime information, make sure data-driven approach. And then we can deliver the evidence-based crime policy, like prevention. Then we can implement some of the recommendations from our analysis. This is our goals and trying to work with the police department and trying to prevent crime in Cedar City. So yes, we'd like to work with the city and the police department. So this is the one approach to prevent crime, and which called like problem-oriented policing. So first of all, we identify quote-unquote issue, and then we try to understand what caused the problem, and then we provide recommendations to the police department to intervene the problems, and then we measure the outcomes, so make sure we deliver the real efficient crime prevention techniques. This is the one example from my work, and I have been working with different police departments, Fairfax Police Department, and Louisiana Police Department, and Sheriff's Office. So you can see this map, like a green means low crime, and red means high crime. So basically, I identified high crime areas. So we don't have to control those places with low crime. We just need to target those high crime areas. And then based on our crime data, we can predict future crime based on historical crime data. So you can see this graph here. So there were like 17 crimes occurred in 2013. and then it drops 3 crimes. However, it's going up. So yes, based on this trend, we can identify maybe this is the place that we need to intervene. And also this technology and research analysis has been proven by other police departments. And this kind of work has been introduced by the Home Office, which is the police headquarters of the United Kingdom. And so based on our collected data, I tried to understand crime patterns, like a trend in Cedar City. This is the finding. So this, like a gray means low crime, like a 0 to 3 crime, to when you see like a yellowish colors, and this red color. Red means high crime. Then I can identify these high crime locations, which means, yes, maybe we need to target those red high crime areas. This is my approach. So once we identify this crime area, then we are trying to understand. We are trying to talk with the communities working or living in this area to find the cause of problems. And then police department and schools and also the citizens can work together to understand and prevent crime. And there are different approaches to visualize crime patterns. You can see there are high crimes, especially near the grocery stores. And I'm not saying that there is no crime outside of this yellow or red area. There are crimes out there. However, we need to target those high crime areas first. Thank you. Any questions?
No, I just appreciate the work you've done on this so far. And, full disclosure, I like these two people. I have an office at SUU where I teach part-time, and I'm just down the hall from Dr. Park and Master Smith, soon to be doctor, right? Anyway, I know they've been working hard on this, and I appreciate that effort, and I look forward to seeing more collaboration in the future with SUU.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, Lainey Smith, again, Southern Utah University. I'll just add a couple of comments. This is what he's been able to come up so far with just brief data that Sergeant Pollock was able to provide us. The goal is today we're showing you what our intent is and what we're going to do. Later, he's actually working with current students this semester. So later he'll come back and actually have better numbers, better graphics, even better maps. That was just 1 year of data that he was able to quickly put together in a matter of a couple of weeks. And then they'll put together propositions for the police department. This in no way takes away from the wonderful work that they do. As you know, because you approved the budget, they're limited, and they don't have a lot of time to do this extra stuff that they would love to do. They, know in their heads where some of these areas are, and they could tell you high crime areas, but to actually be able to use research driven statistics and data analysis to better target is what they're trying to do here. So we can add that for the police department. So thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other staff comments? No. Okay, then we will move on to our business agenda with our public comment portion. If there's anyone here that has a general public comment not about an agenda item,
I've got go ahead. Sorry.
just make sure you state your name as well.
My name is Ann Clark. This is my second time ever at a city council meeting. I came last May or June very concerned about the public areas like the parks and the public areas around the city and the condition that I think they've fallen into a lot of disrepair. At the time, I remember the fire chief getting up and saying that they were going to do fireworks off. That's why I know it was probably June at the aquatic center. And I said, oh, don't do it there. There are dead plants, dead trees, and various things. Since then I got really excited because I saw some trees were replaced and planted. But then I learned that that was by a volunteer group, which is great. I think volunteerism is fabulous. The problem is nothing else has been done. So if you go around like at the aquatic center, because I pick my grandkids up there, I feel like, don't they have a street sweeper? Can't they sweep around the parking lot? Don't they come out? Doesn't anybody come out and pull out the dead plants? The trees have been replaced, but there have been a lot of dead plants, and weeds and tree roots are growing up within the rocks. And so I'm just concerned now that spring is coming, because everything kind of, at a standstill in the winter, but spring is coming. And I know what's going to happen. The weeds are going to start growing. And I remember last year I said, don't we have a budget to spray for weeds? I'm considering, even if you look at the on and off ramps, we spend a lot of money, landscaping those, and then pretty soon it's nothing but weeds. The aquatic center is just nothing but weeds. And so it's my concern, because I want, we have the Utah Games, we have the Shakespeare Festival. We want to present our city as a lovely place to be, not something we aren't caring for. Recently, I went over to Discovery Park because that was also in bad shape last year. Swings are missing. My husband says it's a volunteer park. They do. I said, well, someone has to be in charge. What happens when all of the swings are gone and things like that? Everything just looks ghetto, for a better word. So I'm just here to say, I just wanted to ask if there's a budget for those things, because really what makes a lovely city is, people that keep up their yards. That's one thing. We don't have a lot of say over that, but how businesses present themselves, how the schools present themselves, how the city presents themselves. The schools look great. You go by and the grass looks green. If you want to see just kind of the contrast, look at this as you go up. Look at the school, for the school district, look at their sign of landscaping, and then look at the sign Discovery Park right by it. I think since it's been put in, nothing's ever been done. Weeds are there. The rocks are thrown all over, but the school district looks lovely. So we have a school district and the university that always, when you go by their things, it looks beautiful. City things, not so much. And that's where my concern is. And then, of course, businesses, because I always say, why can't they, we should have a motto, no trash, no weeds, no dirt. If everybody tried to help, then I think the city could be a very lovely place. But right now I'm very concerned, especially about the parks, because we're going to start with soccer season is going to start. They're going to come for Utah Games. And last year, the soccer parks were just nothing but dandelions and weeds. And one day, those weeds clump, and then somebody's going to break a leg. The ballpark up by the aquatic center used to have the most beautiful grass. Now it was just dandelions. Now, last time I came, they said, okay, we fertilized. It never looks fertilized. I could see that some kind of weed, something happened eventually because the weeds started dying. But I feel like if we don't keep things up, then when we have to redo them, the expense is so much more. In the meantime, everything looks terrible. And I'm just concerned because I do see some things happening. I see them mowing the dandelions off, but I'm wondering if we can really take a closer look at our city areas, the public areas like that, the on and off ramps, people when they come in, the impression they get of our city, and see if there's a budget, more of a budget to spray for the weeds, use the street sweeper, clean up things and pull weeds. Because I see people mowing, but I never see them pulling a weed. I never see the trees that are growing up from the roots out in the rocks ever being cleaned up. So I'm just wondering if there's more of a budget for that, if anyone's concerned about it. I drive up there, and every day I drive up, I go, oh my goodness, So is there a budget for that? Or no? Are we just?
Yes, we have budgets to maintain our public facilities.
Okay. So I guess what I'm asking is, you come and you hate to complain, but is something going to be done? Because even the parkways in the aquatic center, some of them have trees, but nothing else has been done. There's just dirt and weeds. I think they thought that it was going to be landscaped at some other time, put in rocks, but it's never been done.
So there's one park place at the aquatic center on the north side of the parking lot that the concrete was never finished. And part of the reason it wasn't finished is because we didn't know for sure what was going to go up there. There's a budget to complete the concrete there, the curb and the gutter work, and to complete the landscaping work. Last year after you came, I know our crews went up and removed a bunch of dead bushes and shrubs and trees and replanted a bunch of stuff up there. And I know that we have had a whole bunch of folks in the last 6 months repaint absolutely every piece of wood at Park Discovery. So that's been done and maintained. That was thanks to a lot of folks and a lot of volunteer hours. We used our resources to buy the stain for the wood and the applicators, the brushes and rollers and such. And we had a lot of volunteers go help us repaint that whole park.
Are they going to replace the swings and things like that? I mean, that part did look better from what I could tell, but
So we do have budgets for these, and we do try to spray for weeds in the spring. We spray the intersections at least 3 or 4 times a year to put a pre-emergent down. And then when the weeds get through the pre-emergent, we go and kill them. And then when they come back, we go and kill them again. It's something we spend a lot of money on every year.
okay, I'll be checking that out closer. I've been up there because I pick grandkids up. I go out and sometimes the buses are parked along the way and I just start weeding at the aquatic center because I think I could sit here or I could get out and weed because it looks, I mean, last year the weeds were like this high. So that's what I was just really curious if they ever got sprayed, because to me it would be. So I'm glad to hear that it has been done. But anyway, I thank you for listening, and I hope that, we can continue to make our city look nice and encourage businesses to also, sweep, weed. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Laura Henderson. I just wanted to quickly talk about the master plan. I know that's on the agenda for this evening and it was tabled from last week. I'm just really hopeful that a lot of time and a lot of thought is put into which group you decide to pick for writing the master plan, and I'm hoping that the town hall meetings are taken seriously and that they're well publicized, whether it's social media, whether it's newspaper, et cetera, because this is a real big opportunity to make a difference. Last time it was 2012 that this was written, and so I think it really needs to have some mindfulness put into it and not just the quickest, cheapest group that is presenting itself. I'm sure there's benefits and deficits to all the groups that have put in proposals, but I'm hopeful that a lot of thought is put into the choosing of that group. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Marilyn Wood, and I'm a concerned citizen also. And I am going to announce my candidacy for Iron County Commission. My family's lived in Enoch. We raised our kids in Enoch and in Cedar City. And we have a small business in Cedar City, here in Cedar City. We ranch. We have quite a large ranch out in western Iron County. We've dealt a lot with public lands, with those type of issues. I feel like, we've worked with that a lot. We've worked in the rodeo committees and that type of thing. So I'm excited to run. And there comes a time in your life, I've never worked in government, but there comes a time in your life that you want to give back because you love a place where you live. And Iron County is a wonderful place, and I do have some concerns about it, and so I'm going to run, and hopefully that I can do some good. So I appreciate your support and your vote. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other general public? Of course, Don.
Good evening, Tom Jett. On Monday evening, I came and I sat in at the Board of Adjustments meeting. It's incredible to watch and what happens there. And for those who aren't familiar with the Board of Adjustments, it's to help situations that aren't completely black and white in the ordinances and make some deviations if necessary. I watched Randall McEwen and Drew Jackson fight on behalf of a small business owner. And every accommodation was made to see that they have an opportunity to be successful. That's wonderful to watch that done, to have advocates within the government that support the community. Because many of the public that come to these meetings, they're with all respect, clueless on really how it goes and how it works and what hoops they have to jump through to make things happen. But when we have staff like Randall and Drew, it makes people feel that, hey, I'm not out here on this island by myself drowning. And so I just like to tell their superiors and council that we have good staff, including those gentlemen that fight to represent the people of Cedar City. And I applaud that. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. All right. Then we will move on to our public agenda with the one item, consider proposals for the general plan update. And if you remember this, we tabled it for this action meeting so that the council had a chance to look at all of the responses.
So Don has provided us with that.
Yes. Do you have questions? Do you want Don to come up? Don, why don't you come up anyway? Like, when in doubt, just come on up and say your name.
Woodrow, City Engineering.
Okay. Thank you for sending us the proposals, and we had the opportunity to read all three of them. I know that our absent council member was concerned about time frame, and I know that each of the proposers laid out a plan in terms of timing, and UPI, which is the Urban Planning International Group, their typical job would be done starting now and be done by May. And that caused concern. In fact, I've had discussions with fellow council members, only one at a time, I might add.
Good job.
And that was a concern. But I am told, and Don, you can confirm this, that is a typical timing, but that they've offered for the price that they have proposed to take as long as 12 months if that's necessary to get the right input and feedback from the
Yeah, I did reach out to Mr. Clay, right? Michael Clay. I did reach out to him. His response was they can go as long as the city wants. But with the caveat of that the scope of work doesn't change.
Right.
So if the city wants more public hearings and more town halls or more outreach than what he's outlined, there would be an additional cost to that.
Because of his staff and travel. And
correct.
Okay. I think it would be helpful for this group to understand that there is pending a legislative funding for what would be new to SUU, but it would be a Utah Center for Community Planning. And what Mr. Clay, Dr. Clay, is doing on the BYU campus would ultimately end up right here and would be part of our community. I think in that context, I'm enthusiastic about engaging him because he would have a very strong vested interest in the work product and the way he conducted the general plan review in this area. I think as a city, we've been very favorably benefited by projects that have been run by students on this campus. And, well, I will include this.
Tonight we had
this law enforcement project that is going. We had a great project with them doing the business plan for the fire department. And I think with Dr. Clay's qualifications, we would be well served going that direction. The price is right. Captive audience makes it a great option for us. And I don't know, that's my take on the three proposals that were submitted.
I originally was concerned on having them do it because of the short time frame, and I want to make sure that we have enough community involvement in it. I was also concerned that he didn't mention any of the Vision 2050 or the ASAP information that's been gathered over the past couple of years, but Craig confirmed with him that he is planning on using all that information. So that alleviated one of my concerns also, because they all mentioned they were going to start surveying the community and whatnot, but never mentioned they would use what we had already spent hundreds of hours doing. And so I feel comfortable with the extended time frame with using them. I think he does have a vested interest in doing a good job for Cedar City because of what, his project here on the SUU campus. I feel good in using UPI. So,
I'll add, Mr. Bittman was able to provide me with some of the raw staff scoring data, which I was, anyway, I just looked at some of the factors, because incorporated in those factors for the staff recommendation were also the cost and the timeline, penalizing longer timelines. And anyway, I spent some time looking at it at those qualitative components. What were their scope, prior work, and cost. And it did look like that if you looked at it from that perspective, that Logan Simpson was clearly the staff preferred from, as far as I guess you could call it a quality perspective, followed by Rural Partners and then UPI, but not too far behind. And I think in a lot of ways it was because of the narrower scope of the project. And the way I kind of see this general plan, there are a couple ways we can go about it. We can do it like we've done general plans in the past, where we get a company, whether they kind of do something quick and easy or whether they pull out all the bells and whistles, and we can kind of passively just let them do it and then change it a few months later. Or we can really come together as a community, hold a lot of public meetings, get a lot of public input, assess things like, the condition of our city facilities. Do we want to lead by example and have nice facilities and increase the budget for that, either by raising taxes or by trimming the fat elsewhere? Or is that not a priority we want as a community? And I think these are questions we need to ask when it comes to amenities or housing and different things. And with that in mind, I do think UPI, this through, and sorry, I'm horrible with names. What was his name again?
Dr. Michael Clay.
Clay. I think with UPI and Dr. Clay, with those factors, I don't think we're going to get the same presentation we would with Logan Simpson, and we're not going to get some of the same, Utah Transit Authority analysis and some of these other big city things, because they do have a more rural scope, and I think that's important. But I think if we go with UPI, if it's going to force us to take more initiative as a council, as a community, and as staff to if we really want this to be a general plan that we stick with, and that we're okay sticking with for at least a few years before we need to change it, then that may be the best option. Because now, granted, we also have the option to just put it on the shelf, but I'm very comfortable with going to UPI, even though the scope and a few other things just did not rate quite as highly. I think they would be compatible with what we'd really want to do if it's a grassroots plan that has community involvement. So that's where I'd be inclined to.
Let me leverage off of what you've said. I think whichever direction we go, we as a planning commission, a city council, we own this process. We really do.
Mhm.
And in fact, in the proposals, we are the executive committee of this process. And so we have got to be committed to our involvement, and that will make it work. That will make it work if we are deeply committed and involved.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I think we can do
Totally
that.
agree.
I think we're at the. I know, speaking for the Planning Commission, there's a frustration level there that everyone will be involved from that commission, and I think I can speak for all of us here. We will be deeply involved in the process. So I would make a motion that we extend a contract to Urban Planning International for our general plan.
Ron, did you have any comments
No.
before we?
You guys said it, everything I had. So.
All right. Okay, I would second that motion.
So with the contract, you want us to look towards extending that, taking a little more time in the planning process? That's what we're hearing?
Right. We probably don't want to go a full year. They said they would go out a year. I don't think we want to take that time. I think we want to do it, but I don't want to do it in 2.5 months in their semester. So
we'll put an extended time frame. We'll also get some more costing from him to build in there.
More
See if we need him down for more public meetings.
Public input.
and Public
And,
input sessions.
and a website that all of these folks can.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll get costing on that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With this, can we get a motion to adjourn our special council meeting and go into our regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Yeah. I like it. And while we're switching meetings, we can't forget that tonight is Councilwoman Hartley's birthday.
Oh.
thank you for reminding everyone of that.
You are welcome.
Usually I
Appreciate
play
that.
the Beatles version of Birthday, but
I'm not going to sing.
I don't- should we sing?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Terry. Happy birthday to you.
And many more.
Thank you.
Are you ready? All right. We will now call our council work meeting to order for tonight, February 5th, 2020. And we will start with our business agenda with our public portion with item number 1, consider final plat approval for the Paradise Townhomes.
Bob Platt here.
Yeah.
That's not it. That's not it. That's not it.
That's certainly.
There we
not
go.
it.
This is up at the corner of Spruce and Paradise behind Dairy Queen. It's a proposed 4-unit townhome project. It's been through vicinity plat. Plans have been reviewed and approved by the city engineer's office. Final plat Mylar's been given to Kit and then to Tyler. Bonding's in place. I think it's ready to go, Tyler.
Yeah, all fees have been paid. The bond agreement's been signed. There's no legal reason why this can't move forward.
Motion to approve? Oh, no,
Oh,
this is
no,
a work
it's just-
meeting.
Yeah, just if you want this. on the
Sorry, we've been
consent.
reading this for a week now, so I'm
I've
thinking, I'm
been
getting ahead of
reading this-
myself.
I've been reading this one for months,
All right.
right?
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or do you want it to go on the consent agenda?
Consent would be good.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 2, consider final plat approval for the Blackstone Phase 3 PUD.
Ron Larson with Three Peaks Engineering and Levitt Land. This is the third plat that we've done out in that area out there by the middle school. This is the small single-family homes that'll be just north of the townhomes, right along Cove Drive. And this, it's been through, the design's done, I think the bonds and the fees and everything are all in and paid?
Yeah, we've received the bond agreement signed. Everything is in line to move forward.
Okay.
All right. Are there any comments, questions from council? Good
Not
with
on
this?
this one.
Did you want me to move yours right along too?
Yeah, just move it right along. You can approve it if you want.
All right. You good with that on consent?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 3, public hearing to consider a zone change from central commercial to mixed use for property located at 164 South, 100 West.
Okay, Bob Platt again. This is a proposed zone change at the famous Garden House property. 164 South, 100 West. From central commercial, which it's presently zoned, to mixed use, which is in conformance with the general plan. Facts of the matter are this went to Planning Commission, and you probably know it had a 1-4 voting, 1 positive, 4 negative. But that's where we are. We're here to City Council for the same project.
Bob, quick question. Do you know, does your client have a plan of what they're going to do with the property at this
He's right
point?
here.
Very nervous. There's a way to
Nervous
Will
move
you
my.
state
we're
your
not
name
sure.
as well?
My name is Brad Bryan. I own property at 354 South 100 West here in Cedar. And I am one of the drivers of this proposition. And your question was, do we know what we want to do? Yes, we have some ideas. We have some concepts. If zoning goes one way, we build something. If zoning goes the other way, we build something else. But not to be coy about it, I do have some pencil drawings here. If anybody would like to see what I'm doing, they're very welcome to see what I have. Is it okay if I continue with what I would like to say? Bringing this motion, I obviously am in favor of that, and I'd like to make an argument on its behalf. I am an owner of property at 354 South, 100 West in Cedar and in other locations. I make my living in doing multifamily housing, assisted living, and commercial real estate. We do not know exactly what we want to do, but we are close. At the Planning Commission, there was a lot of discussion and debate that was outside the scope of what we are asking tonight. We are simply asking that our project, in connection with the general plan that was approved September 26, 2012, identified this area as land that could be zoned mixed use. And so that is exactly what we're doing. We're not coming here to ask for site plan approval, but if there are those who are interested in, I've got that information. In citing the general plan, I'd like to base my argument on 2 or 3 points from the general plan. Page 34, section 7-1-B talks about land use goals and objectives. It states in part under 01-01.5 that one of the purposes of the general plan is to identify appropriate areas, and I'm quoting, identify appropriate areas for multiple family housing development adjacent to the city's downtown core and the university campus. I hasten to add that this project satisfies that requirement, being 1 block away from the city core and 2 blocks away from the classrooms on campus. Number 2, on page 51, not only should we not turn down this request, but the city council, according to the general plan, should encourage it based on infill development. Quoting from page 51, Cedar City should explore incentives to promote appropriate development of vacant parcels of land, particularly those parcels of land that are surrounded or nearly surrounded by development land and would constitute infill development parcels. Development of such vacant parcels would result in more efficient use of the existing utilities, road patterns, and other city services. This pattern of development would result in lower costs for the city services, more compact development patterns, cohesive neighborhood structure, and lower costs for infrastructure extension. Incentives to encourage this type of development could take the form of reduced impact fees or for utility hookups. Point number 3, the general plan was put in place to prevent blight and deterioration. Page 26, section 5, under neighborhood enrichment. The plan should be, quote, used to prevent the onset of blight and deterioration. And this is a priority of the general plan. In conclusion, this project makes sense. The location being where it is consistent with the general plan that allows this zone change to occur. If you are not consistent in adhering to the general plan, then why does the city have a general plan at all? If you have in the past rezoned other parcels based on the general plan, then you need to apply a consistent standard to this request. Otherwise, a decision against this request is arbitrary and capricious, and essentially based on public clamor. Without any credible evidence of why this shouldn't be approved, you really have no choice but then to approve it. And further, if another party in the future should come down the road, perhaps more politically connected or richer, and relying on the general plan, requests and obtains a change in zoning, you've opened the city to liability. And no one wants to go down that road. If you choose not to approve this request, you need to be able to articulate that it is reasonably debatable, that the request is not in the general welfare. Cedar City's own general plan makes the firm argument that this zone change is in the general welfare. A decision to deny a request cannot be based solely on public clamor. The decision has to be reasonably debatable. And to deny it, once again, that you would have to say that this is not in the general welfare. And this proposal did obtain a recommendation for deny, but if there has ever been a textbook example of public clamor, a decision based on public clamor, the Planning Commission meeting was a great example of that. Case law states in part, quote, a reviewing body presented with an application must rely on facts and not mere emotion or local opinion in making such a decision whether to approve or not. Your own general plan supports the request for zone change and in fact encourages it. If the city council votes against changing the zone to what's approved and outlined in the general plan, you are setting a precedent against the plan. That is not in the interest of the public. It essentially negates all of the hard and smart work that went into preparing the 2012 general plan. Once again, we cannot rely on public clamor. We cannot make an arbitrary or capricious decision, nor one that is based on perceived market conditions of a competitor. Do you have any questions for me?
I'd like to know what your involvement is with this. I know you're at least not the agent of record or anything like that. Is there a pending contract for sale?
Yes, the property's under contract subject
Subject to
getting
the zone
to the
change.
zone change.
Okay.
Right. Are there any other comments or questions for the council before we open the public hearing on this item?
Are you able to leave your contact information so we can visit over the coming week?
Sure.
If you could do that before you leave, that'd be great.
Do you need it now so everybody can get it?
Sure, if you want.
Well, maybe not. I don't want the whole world calling me.
Yeah, just, if you write it on a piece of paper up here, we can get it.
We can pass
And
it
the
on.
stuff that you read, can we get a copy of that for the minutes?
Sure.
Thank you.
We have a tradition of telling everybody where we live too. So
Um,
I'm just teasing.
all right, no, you're good. Just come write your contact information and we'll make sure the council members get it. All right, and with that, we will open the public hearing on this item. And I would ask, just know that obviously we have a packed room, so please try to keep your comments as brief as possible and say your name so I don't have to cut you off to start that back over.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. This is going to be a bit long because I'm representing my parents-in-law, Richard and Janice Robertson. My name is Charlize McConnell Robertson, and my in-laws are both not able to attend this evening due to previous engagements out of town. My husband, Jonathan Robertson, relocated to Cedar City in August of 1995, and I followed the following year in June of 1996, in the midst of Utah's sesquicentennial year. Our goal was to work in our chosen professions, at the time in theater at the Utah Shakespearean Festival. We were both employed by the festival for several seasons. We were immediately impressed with the city and its citizens' respect and love of and heritage and history. There was such an incredible sense of pride and respect for the past during the sesquicentennial that has seemed to have faded and been lost over the last 24 or so years. Since our early days residing in Cedar City, we have seen this heritage and history demolished and destroyed house by house and building by building. It is a travesty and a shameful practice. In August 2019, Mr. and Mrs. Robertson purchased the residence at 180 South, 100 West, which is directly adjacent and to the south of the infamous Garden House lot, which we have the address as 164 South, 100 West. The Robertsons purchased this residence in hopes of enjoying their retirement and operating a small bed and breakfast in a neighborhood known for such businesses as well as beautiful historic family homes and for its history, charm, safety, and sense of community. This zoning change would negatively affect the running of such an enterprise and a peaceful retirement, along with the wonderful community so carefully cultivated and nourished in this neighborhood. While it is true Mr. and Mrs. Robertson have no idea as to what the current owners or possible new buyers of this property have planned, it can be easily surmised after seeing all of the new apartment buildings and student housing that have been constructed in the student housing district that such a structure is most likely the goal for this property. As it is currently zoned, there could be both residential and commercial business structures on the property. Is that not enough? The Robertsons are dreading the possibility of a large structure looming over their and their neighbors' properties, along with increased traffic, noise, and possible nuisance. You now have the Robertsons' reasons and concerns for having their voices heard. We would now like to address the problems at hand. It was made very clear by a certain member, and again this evening, of the Zoning and Planning Commission at the meeting on January 7th, 2020, that public clamor cannot be considered when deciding such issues as rezoning. In my research, I could find only one bill which mentions this, which is State Bill 170, Local Government Land Use and Impact Fee Revisions from the 2006 General Session. This bill requires courts to consider a decision arbitrary or capricious if it is based on public clamor, based on the personal preferences, desires, or whims of the legislative body, or does not conform to local ordinances or state law. In stating thus, our legislature has forced the silence of its constituents' voices based on emotion, want, desire, and even opinion as to what is best for their own neighborhoods and communities. This legislation is belittling to citizens and stacks the decks against them and their views, wants, needs, and desires with no course of action and allows property owners and developers to do as they please. This brings me to the crux of this and all such matters in our city. You as a governing body want facts. Here are some facts. 1, The process for rezoning is gravely and fatally flawed and must be changed before any rezoning is decided upon in the future. Currently, any property owner in Cedar City can request a zoning change of their property, and if it matches what the Cedar City Master Plan has proposed for said property, it is to, according to the city attorney, be positively recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission to City Council. It has also been stated that these changes must be positively recommended in order to avoid litigation by property owners against Cedar City. The other glaring problem with the rezoning process is that it allows owners and developers to request such zoning changes without plans and/or blueprints as to what will be constructed on the property the request is for. This must be fixed, period. Residents affected by construction have the right to know what is coming and be able to take action. 2, the student housing district must not remain. Yes, students need housing. However, with vacancies numbering 211 in student housing in fall of 2019 and numerous vacancies in privately owned apartment dwellings nearby, it is not necessary to construct new monstrous edifices. Students do burst our economy while here, but they do not pay property taxes, and very few who graduate from SUU stay here and build their lives and contribute to our community. 3, tourism dollars are down and going elsewhere. Cedar City is known as Festival City, USA, and its largest tourist draw is the Utah Shakespeare Festival. People from all over the world travel here to experience this wonderful event, yet businesses are losing money every tourist season. This is partially due to the fact that our wonderful bed and breakfast row is being made less and less attractive by large apartment buildings located nearby. These apartments increase noise, traffic, and crime. How can we as a community expect anyone to want to spend their vacation in such an environment? 4, the Cedar City Master Plan is up for revision. The Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council must suspend any rezoning changes or requests until such time as a committee consisting of members of the Zoning and Planning Commission, City Council, Cedar Historical Preservation Committee, and most importantly, their constituents and citizens of Cedar City can decide on a new and more balanced master plan that puts people before progress. In closing, my husband and I purchased our home in Cedar City almost 19 years ago, not only to build our dreams, but to put down roots in a community we grew to care for and love. We found a place we felt safe, secure, and is a beautiful place where we have built lasting relationships with many of its citizens. This community comes together with great strength and conviction when it feels its morals, ethics, values, and way of life are threatened. As an example of this, I remember vividly occurred in the late 1990s when a controversial and subversive group tried to make Cedar City its new base of operations, and members were sent here to set up headquarters. When this group and its agenda were discovered after violent confrontations with some of our citizens, they were quickly yet peacefully told they were not welcome and needed to move elsewhere, and they did. The cohesiveness of our community is the backbone of a lifestyle that is being threatened by violence and supposed progress every day in smaller cities and towns such as ours across America. Please do not let our beautiful gem of a city fall victim to such atrocities. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Can I get a copy of the wonderful? Thank you so much. Thank you. Hey, no big deal.
Laura Henderson, I would just like to echo that comment too. I'm very, very, very offended when I'm called public clamor. I'm a taxpayer and I want to be addressed as such, and I have a right to say what I want and for my property in my neighborhood, and I find that term extremely offensive. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Then we will. Okay.
Hi, my name's Sean Wharton. I'm new to the area. I've lived here about 2 years, but this couple of properties, I think the two that we are talking about, the first lady who talked was representing some of her in-laws or something. And I came to town, and I'm a restaurant guy. I've owned many restaurants, have a lot of education, a lot of experience, a lot of, lifetime of experience in the restaurant industry. So I saw this garden house right away and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a gem. Let's do it. You know, and I know that that's probably what a lot of people would love to see in that spot is like this boutique restaurant right here. It's great. It'll, you know, draw some stuff, but I ran numbers on that thing every which way I could, and it just doesn't even come close to penciling out on any level for it to be run as a local boutique restaurant. I did put an offer in on the house that was next door to it, the one that the in-laws now live in. And I put that offer in about a year ago. So those people, they rejected my offer because it was contingent on a sale of my house and they wanted to move on. But that house has the neighbors who obviously just moved in and like it the way it is and don't want it to change, which, you know, that's their prerogative. I have a lot of history in government and I've been on a commission and a commissioner for a lot of years. And so I've seen experience in this, and I do really appreciate when I see decisions that are made on findings and facts and conclusions of law, opposed to feelings and wants and needs and what I would like. I mean, when I moved into that, was looking at that house, I looked at the zoning and I educate myself reasonably as to what can possibly happen. And I made the decision, I can live with that. I don't know if other people do the same, but I think that that's the way that the system is intended to go. And I appreciate it when it goes the right way. That's about all I have to say.
If there are no other public comments, we will close the public hearing on this item and put this on our action agenda.
Mayor,
Yes?
it's been brought to my attention, and this, I may be out of order doing this, but a lot of these folks are here for our very last agenda item.
Yes.
Would it be out of line to change our agenda?
I was
order?
going to say when we get to the staff portion, if we can get through the public ones.
Okay.
Because a number of those also. And then as soon as we get to the staff ones, I was going to say, let's bump that one right up.
Thank you.
Because with the public hearings and all that, I want to keep those in our
I mean,
agenda order.
We're enthralled with this, but these youngsters,
Yes.
we're losing them.
So if we can get through unless the council would like to do that one right now, it's up,
Well,
it's
don't
up to
know.
you. You
Just
can,
trying to accommodate all these good people. And
you
their
can make a
children.
motion that you want to change the agenda order right now.
And I will make a motion that we move agenda item 11 up to number 3.
Is there a second?
Number 4.
Right after number 4.
I mean, number 4, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. We just finished 3.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Okay. So then we will move to item number 11, the Canyon Ranch Multipurpose Complex.
Mayor, council, staff, Ken Nielsen, Leisure Services Director. Thanks, Kit, for putting that up. I'm here to pass along some information we have gathered regarding the so-called Canyon Ranch complex. We have a rendering that you see on the screen. I think you have those in your council packets as well. Some cost estimates and other information for the area that we will discuss tonight, just to pass that information out to everybody involved. This information, it should provide a basis for further dialogue and discussion moving forward for the designated recreational purposes. So we also are fortunate enough to have Joe Phillips from Sunrise Engineering with us tonight from St. George. So he drove up to answer any questions that might pertain to that aspect with the cost estimates and the rendering. So that's nice to have him with us as well. First off, I want to just make sure that we all understand the area that we're talking. It's the Fiddlers area, north of Fiddlers. This is the Sittler land swap that we were involved with. So it's a 40-acre parcel. And 20 of those, part of the agreement is 20 acres is designated as recreational purposes. So we don't have to worry about apartments, townhomes, neighborhoods going into that area. As you can see, it has some challenges, but it also has a lot of good qualities as well. So the feasibility study was conducted. Joe sent out 3 proposals, layouts. Those layouts were presented to staff, to the Leisure Services Committee. It went through all the people that might have some suggestions or some ideas involved. We wanted to make sure that we kind of visited with a lot of folks that had some ideas that may not be normal recreation activities. Some of the challenges with that area is, as you can see, it has a 7% slope. It has some side drainage. We deal with the water conservation, the field sizes, the amenities. We just wanted a plan in place and kind of some direction to kind of move us forward in our discussions. As you saw, Kit, do you have the cost estimate sheet as well? The cost estimate sheet from Sunrise, these are based on bid prices from prior projects that they've been involved in, and the material quantities estimated from a concept plan. They stated that they feel these numbers are reasonably accurate. They probably represent, Joe mentioned that they probably represent the upper bound of those costs. But when you start looking, I didn't realize this till a while ago, but you start looking at restrooms and playgrounds and stuff, and those are pretty accurate. That's really what those entail. They also mentioned that along with some of the other folks, that it might be more conducive to kind of look at reducing the field numbers from 7 to 6. What this would do is open it up a little bit. It's really tight with 7 fields. So they want to, look at removing one of those down on the south end, kind of open it up with more amenities and parking and make it just flow better, as well as reducing the capital cost, of course. I visited with Joe. There is the possibility, of course, of phases. He is willing to venture with the phase. I asked him if they've done that in the past, and if you're familiar with the Little Valley the Little Valley complex in St. George, he mentioned that came about in 5 phases. They kind of attacked the baseball at one time, and then the soccer, and then the pickleball, and kind of went until they got the complex that they were after. So I knew that would be a topic of discussion. I've visited with some folks and interested in phasing. Obviously, the total amount is substantial. So the phasing part discussion would be, what do we phase into that phase 1? Obviously the road's got to go in. Joe suggested that we stay on the south end with that first phase and move north. So, do we do 3 fields and 1 restroom and then 4 pickleball courts and a playground and kind of move that direction? So those phases, that phase discussion can be something that we can advance in the discussion. I'm presenting this as the information that we gathered from our study. He also will provide, as part of that study, O&M costs. He hasn't got that to me yet, but that will be coming, and I'll pass that along as soon as I get it. Any questions for me? I know there's probably quite a few for Joe, and I know there's probably quite a few folks that have public comments.
So are you saying that we would have to come up with a plan and then he would get the costs for the phasing, or can it be broken down like what the cost of a soccer field, the green area, the pickleball courts, that type of thing?
Yeah, I'm sure Joe has all the answers.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you, Ken, for that explanation. Right. So what we would
Will you just
anticipate.
state your name for the record?
Joe Phillips, Sunrise Engineering. And what I would propose is probably on the south end makes the most sense to me. They're closer to existing utilities there. You could step from there, build an access into the facility, and I think initially build that leg into the first roundabout there, and then the parking lot, the lot that goes off to the west. Build several of the pickleball courts and build a restroom facility, even perhaps a scalable restroom facility there. So it allows you to have a place to grow the facility as you go forward into the coming years. I'd suggest to Ken too that there be probably the way to go about this is do a preliminary design on the whole site so that you make sure that the grading plan works into the future, but then come back and just do a detailed design on a phase 1 project and put that one out to bid and build that, and you can build on it. That's just similar to what we've done with, like Ken mentioned, the Little Valley Complex down in St. George's, worked through that in phases.
Tyler, there was some requirements that we had to build the road in
Yeah.
during a certain period of time. Do you remember how long that was?
I believe it was 20 years.
Oh, okay.
I've got a question. I'm not sure if it's kind of a general knowledge question. I checked the property records to see what the neighbors are, because a lot of that's undeveloped, and I know to the east it's BLM, and then Sittler still owns the property immediately to the north. Are there any development plans around this area in the next 10 or 20 years? And if so, what does the density of those plans look like? Because one of my concerns with the site, at least in the short term, is that this would be a destination park. This is not a park that more than looks like about 200 homes could walk to.
So prior to the recession, there was a overall master plan for that whole area, and it was done in conjunction with Sittler and with Linford Nelson and the other landowners in the area. And it had a whole mixture of housing types through there. I don't think that one ever got all the way through our process, so it's never been formally adopted. I don't think there's anything on the horizon today that is filed with the city as far as development plans. I do know that Mr. Dave Smith has an interest in some property to the east and south of this complex to build into residential. He's been back and forth with us for a number of years, wanting to, at various times, he's interested in proceeding, and then sometimes he goes away and we don't hear from him for a while. So I don't think he's filed a vicinity plan or anything like that with us. So in the long run, is all that ground going to develop someday? Probably. Yeah. But we don't know.
Okay. Couple follow-up questions. Has that Fenwick Way been designated as a through street for some time? Because I imagine if not, and if we start developing from the south rather than from the north, we're going to have similar issues to what we've had with, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the Eagle Point, Talon Ridge, south of the liquor store, is, that we might have a lot of residents upset that their now quiet street has become a thoroughfare for especially tournaments and things like that.
Fenwick's been a through street. I assume if you route a lot of traffic that way, you'll get a lot of complaints from a lot of the neighbors. Yeah.
Okay.
But Fenwick has not been designated as a dead end or anything to give the appearance that it will never be anything but a through street.
Okay.
We do have a master plan road that goes through this area that would come out down by the north interchange.
Right.
In that area.
Right. And yeah, I'm aware of that, but in the interim. And then my last kind of general question was, so this is a 40-acre parcel. Sittler required 20 acres be residential.
No, recreational.
Oh, sorry. That's what I meant. Thank you for hearing what I meant and not what I actually said. That they said 20 acres had to be recreational. Is there an option in this plan to perhaps redesign where we could, if we're putting in all these improvements, to be able to sell some of that or develop somehow to offset some of the costs of this complex?
So within that 40 acres, quite a bit of that land is very hilly. Be hard pressed to develop the hillsides
Right.
into a viable recreational component unless we get into the zip line business very heavily. So we're kind of locked into the 20 acres that's somewhat flat-ish.
Okay. I don't know, zipline business. Any
We should do
hands
zip
here?
lines. We should
Yeah.
have
Why not both?
chairlifts and zip lines.
Right.
You just opened up a whole new possibility.
That sounds like a new winter sport. A bunny slope and a zip line. Yeah. And interesting. Anyway, sorry. That was all for now for me.
Were there not some restrictions that we couldn't sell that? Seems like we had those discussions at the time we traded the property.
We can't flip that property and sell it to anyone
Okay,
else.
that's what I thought.
And BLM has everything to the east of our piece, and they have a trailhead coming that direction, and they plan on, with this being completed, would help, the trail system a lot too, and give another location for that. They've already developed most of that behind it into trail, or a lot of it is coming that direction. So I think that was one of the pluses for the complex. Plus, I know in the early stages of discussion, this complex had a very favorable connection, maybe to help Tyler understand a little bit about the neighborhood or impact to the neighborhood. The neighborhood was all over it because they have wanted some type of park and playground in the Fiddler's Canyon area forever. And they were really excited when this was presented because we had put some park, or park equipment and other things into the planning of the complex, which gives them a place to go send their kids to play in a park, which they don't have now because none's been developed immediately in their subdivision by developers. So that'll help answer a couple.
If I may, too, just a couple of considerations. When we think about neighborhoods adjacent to sports field complexes, one of the things that we want to think about is the lighting scenarios. You have 50, 60, 70-foot tall light mass. Nowadays, the light scatter has really been diminished from what it used to be, and so they're a lot more neighborhood friendly than they have been in years past. Although there is some light scatter, you have to think about that a little bit. And then two, on as far as the through street, anytime we build a sports complex or any kind of a park, we would prefer not to have a major road bisecting the site just for safety purposes. You'll notice in the master plan that we did in that through street plan in 2 roundabouts, and then it's also built or planned in a parkway fashion. And those 2 items tend to be traffic calming measures that would help slow the traffic and control that as the traffic passed through the site going different directions. And so those are some of the considerations that we put into that to try and make sure that road functions as we've kind of understood the plan to be that Kit referenced. But at the same time, having it be a nice park improvement and have some character to it that's a real showpiece for your community.
I guess a more engineer-specific question. In doing these estimates, I took some time to go check out the area, and I have some friends that live right over there. They have a really hard time getting anything to grow because of the nature of the soil. I know there was significant budgeting for dirt work, earth moving, things like that. I guess to what extent did your study take into effect the nature of the existing topsoil or lack thereof and the boulders, things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously we don't have the benefit of having a soils analysis at this point since it's only conceptual. At the time when you do contemplate moving forward with a project, we would advise that you get soil samples and send them to a qualified laboratory that would test them and then specify what types of amendments need to be included in any soil that would be used as a topsoil. But what we have included in this with the sod is we're assuming 4 inches of topsoil would have to be brought in for the sod to have a chance of surviving. But those two items combined, and then once you get into the actual design, look at water quality combined with soil quality, and then make some decisions as to whether or not you need a sub-drain system, move water through more quickly than it would otherwise, and some of those kind of things. But my feeling is that there's sufficient budget factored in with the contingency that we put in there to be able to have some flexibility when we get into a design process to cover some of those things that you're asking about.
Okay.
Just one comment on the topsoil. We've got the Fiddler's Canyon detention basin that's up to the east of this project. And it's been there for, 10, 12 years. And it's got a lot of topsoil in it that's been washed down off the mountains. So we feel we got a pretty good source of topsoil.
Right.
So is this cost estimate, is this like a flat surface or are these tiered down that slope?
Great question. As you know, and Ken referenced it, the site slopes from south to north in about a 7% grade. Soccer fields, we want those to be, and when we design this, assuming that the council moves forward over time, we'd recommend some crowning in that, but the crowning is generally longitudinal, so it'd be running, the center crown on a field would run from south, in this case, to north. And so those fields would generally be flat as you run south to north. And so each time as we come to the north end of a field, we've got to drop down about 20 feet, honestly. So it's quite a drop. The short answer to your question is there's a lot of earthwork that needs to take place to make those fields step down. We kind of envision with this plan a set of 3 tiers. And you probably noticed in the estimate, there's quite a bit of value in rock walls there that we need to install. One thing Ken mentioned is the removal of one of the fields, which I would recommend to help boost area for parking. It also would loosen that site up a little bit and make it not feel quite as crowded as it does right now. But the other advantage to that is that it allows a little more room for using slopes, 2-to-1 slopes, 3-to-1 slopes, to help make some of those grade changes as opposed to going with rock walls.
If you took out a field, would you just do parking or would you do some sort of park amenity so that the neighborhood could have swing sets and green grass to play Frisbee on or whatever they want to do?
Yeah. We would really, it would be, I would anticipate that a steering committee be formed. The short answer to your question is we could do whatever the city wants in that kind of an area. But I would recommend initially that at minimum we get some more parking in there. I think we're short on parking by 300 or 400 stalls, to be quite honest with you. Each of those fields are represented as full-size soccer fields, but if you look closely, showing east to west, we're showing what a U12 size field would do on those fields. And by the time you add it, if you put U12 fields on each of those full-size fields, you'd have 14 U12 games going on at any given time if the facility were full. And ideally, that would require about 1,300 parking stalls. Right now in the site, we have, I think, 650-ish or 675. So we'd be more comfortable if there were about, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 stalls. If we eliminate one field, it takes that stall requirement down and then gives more room to boost some stalls, plus some other amenities that you're talking about that are more of neighborhood park type improvements that we could put in there at the city's direction.
Additional comments from council?
No. Great looking complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, great design.
Just need to have Derek write a big check.
I tried. Tried hard.
I know there are some residents here that if they would like to speak, we'll do like 30 minutes worth of comments if there's anyone that is so inclined to speak. No?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I was like, you have to be on your best behavior. There are a lot of children here.
Bring the teleprompter then. Trump can do it. I can do it.
A lot of children.
No,
Beat button out.
I just want to thank
And you
everyone.
need to say your name.
Derek Morton, Mr. Bleep. So with this, because I know some of the questions that we've had as we've pushed is potential funding, especially that large number, and what's the potential for continued partnership with potentially UISA. So, and as chair of that committee, I just kind of want to give a little breakdown on where we're at. So for obvious reasons, because of the 2-year delay on getting this feasibility study done and numbers, the $500,000 that we were looking at to bring to the table to help with construction, and about the $600,000 to help with maintenance over 20 years is off the table. So that I mean, the delay hurt on $1.1 million. So add in the fact that, you know, we've been approached by numerous other people that we're looking at. So what we could potentially have, because we know we're probably a couple years out, with the legacy field fund, which for Tyler's benefit and to remember everyone, UISA at the beginning of each season in the fall, you have to pay a $40 legacy field fee fund, which goes into a reoccurring account that'll help pay for fields like this, because UISA, as the largest youth organization in the state, has struggled with government entities and making sure they have fields. And so they said, let's take matters into our own hands. Southern Utah, with that, we've got the first project in the state ongoing on the Shivwits Reservation, which is where the $500,000 went. Because it was first, we've been able to get a sizable donation to help pay for that as well from a foundation that we should announce probably here shortly. It's going to do some cool stuff with us. It's kind of nice actually to work with an Indian reservation because there's benefits I didn't realize. All we need is the casino. So with that money going up, we average at the beginning of each season about $95,000 that'll go into that fund. We're working on currently to help pay for the maintenance of Shivwits, and we're working with those numbers. So in 2 years' time, UISA could potentially have about $200,000, depending on how maintenance looks and how we fund for the maintenance of that. We would also be looking with our network of contacts to be able to hopefully bring about some in-kind donations. What that looks and what that entails, we don't know until we figure out what the city would like to do. So that's where we're at. That's what we could potentially bring to the table, depending on a million different things. As my phone's like literally blown up over the last week on all of a sudden, hey, what about this? So that's where we're at. Any questions on that with UISA, what we could potentially bring to the table to help in that regard? Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Did I do all right, Mayor?
Good job.
Thank you. That's all I looked for. Your approval.
I know. You got it. Good job.
Thank you, Derek. I know you've worked hard on this.
Very hard.
My name is Zach Murray. I'm just a coach and a very big soccer fan. So I'm thrilled about something like this. And as far as comments I would have is one of the challenges, I grew up in St. George, and seeing all of the soccer development there for the youth there is seeing a huge impact on their ability to compete, their ability to provide resources and opportunities for kids to play. And quite frankly, we're lacking in those things. And when you look at the difference, the biggest difference is facilities that we don't have, that they do have, that limit our ability to grow, something that a lot of kids are taking part in. It's a huge sport activity for our youth here, both recreationally and from a competitive basis and standpoint. And this is something that would help grow that and actually reach more kids and give more opportunities to kids from this area. And I think it'd be a huge benefit to soccer, not only here, but also in Southern Utah. And I think it's something that as a citizen here and someone who loves being here as opposed to St. George, this is something I would love to see here because It'd be fantastic to be able to have a facility and resources that actually match the interest level of the community in this sport. So, thanks.
I'm Dixon Tiffany. I'm very aware of the area there. I spend a lot of time in this area. And I know the residents that live around this area. And I've spoken with a contractor and an earth moving businessman about this development. And he's spoken to me about the ability to move that kind of earth, and the rocky nature of that area would be very exorbitant in the price to move that area. Also, the access road that it's showing here on the south end is not going to be available there. So that's going to be a tough sell, especially for the neighbors in that area. So a road into the sports complex that we're talking about here would have to come from the main street rather than through anything that's already existing. I don't know if that's been taken into consideration.
There was a second cost estimate. That's 2.5
Yeah.
million.
But and when I discussed with this contractor what we were looking at here, and he's pretty aware of the area also. He's looked at it real closely. He said that the cost of terracing and moving the earth, and especially the very rocky nature of that area, would be phenomenal. So when I'm looking at a $12 million estimate, my opinion, and it's an unprofessional opinion for sure, would probably be 3 to 4 times that amount. I know that there's many of the people who live in that area and have been around there are very iffy about whether it could actually work, especially when he's talking about terracing it from one level. I mean, these are fields, soccer fields, and I'm not against soccer. I love soccer. I think it's a great sport, and I've been involved with it in many aspects. But our opinion is that there are many other places in this area where something like this could go in, which would be easier to access, less expensive to build, and to be more efficient and effective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Terry Ogden. I'm with Utah Youth Soccer Association. I'm the Region 6 representative. So I basically cover everything for Utah Youth Soccer from, think of it as I-70 South. So I have a lot of miles traveled on me. So, and this plan looks fantastic, by the way. Let me just give you a few points that with the municipalities that I've worked with. I've lived in Mesquite, Nevada since 5 years before the sports and events complex was built in Mesquite. And one thing that people need to be aware of soccer fields is the beauty of a full-size soccer pitch is that you can play any other sport on it with the exception of full-size adult rugby. Okay. That's the only sport that plays on a bigger field. So calling this a soccer complex is great. And I love that because I've got that's my job, but it's a little myopic, honestly, to think of it as just a soccer complex. The money that we would throw in would come from these kids that are in this room with us right now. Every year they pay an extra $40 out of their parent, it's their parents' money, but it's the kids' money. And we are growing rapidly. So the estimate that Derek gave you, I think looking at our growth chart, if it continues, and I don't see St. George and this area slowing down in growth anytime soon as anybody else, just nod your head if you do. So that should increase quite a bit. So I want to just give you some factual information and then guide you to your own mathematical conclusions here. The question is always how to pay for something like this, and is it an appropriate expenditure for a municipality? The first question is, how do you pay for it? And I can tell you one thing that Washington City has learned, and please reach out to them with their Sullivan Soccer Complex. They maybe shouldn't have done that. It's benefited us greatly, but you cannot monetize a project like this if you're looking at as a rental revenue coming back into your city coffers. The other thing I want to remind you of, unless anybody disagrees with me, I'll stop going this direction, but the city and the people up there don't have any money. You have their money. Am I correct? Did everybody agree with that? So how do you monetize that? And who does this money go back to? Well, it should be going back to the business owners in tax base for the heads in beds and the butts in seats in restaurants. That's how you monetize a project like this. So with that in mind, I'm going to tell you what's happened to the city of Mesquite over just 4 weekends. So a total of 4 times 4, 16 days out of the year. Okay. Since 2016, Utah Youth Soccer hosts 4 winter soccer events. Okay. For the state of Utah. In those 5 years, and that is including two tournaments that are happening over the next 2 weeks. So, but the registrations are done, so the figures are accurate. That has brought 35,967 youth players to Mesquite. Okay. Last I checked, they don't travel alone. Okay. So industry averages and national averages for sports travel indicate that 2.4 people per kid, if it's boys activity, come along with a youth tournament of any kind. And I'm not just talking soccer. Okay. So based on that 2.4, if somebody wants to start doing the quick math, let's do 35,967. Anybody got a calculator on their phone? They want to wipe this out? I've got it here, but just to check my math, it comes out to 86,320 visitors. Okay. Based on the national average. Personally, seeing the crowds that come down to that complex, I'm going to say Utah travels a little better, possibly because of the socioeconomic and the religious dynamic of the community. So I think you're higher than that national average. Average person that comes down to Mesquite for those tournaments stays 3 nights, 3 hotel nights. Okay. So Derek reached out earlier today to, who was it, Derek? Maria Twitchell. Okay. That's involved with the economic development up here. Tourism. The tourism. Okay. The math that they use for a per person economic impact was $140 per day per person. So if you want to do that math real quick, that's 86,320 times 140, which my math in my head comes out roughly to just under $40 million over a 5-month period based on solely 4 weeks, 4 weekends of play. Okay. That's the simple math. It's verifiable, it's factual, and it's based on information from your people within your own department with the tourism and economics. So that's the answer, is how you pay for it. Now, does that go directly into the city coffers? No, but there's definitely the residual impact from the taxes and everything else that's going to come in. The other thing that I want to mention is no matter where you put this place, you're going to have 5 or 6 neighbors upset. I don't know if any of you have ever been to this Mesquite Sports and Events Complex, but you would have thought the city was trying to, literally draw and quarter people when some of the people that had moved into Sun City moved in there before the complex was built. And even though it said Sports and Events Complex on the master plan right next to it, they were very upset to find out it was actually being used. So, that's my 2 cents. And if anybody has any questions for me from Utah Youth Soccer, I'd be glad to take them.
Can I ask you a question about the economic impact?
Yes.
You gave us examples of Mesquite hosting tournaments in the winter. We can't do that. How many tournaments are there on the Wasatch Front from April to October, which is be roughly our season?
There are a lot, but here's the good news.
So how do we compete with that?
Very simply, you've got a great weather pattern down here for the summer. So you've got northern Utah weather, and we have, in order to have a sanctioned tournament through Utah Youth Soccer Association, you have to be an organizational member. You have one here. But we also have for additional organizational members in St. George that can't find a weekend and or a place to do a tournament, that I can guarantee you 2 or 3 of them are going to want to do a sanctioned tournament up here. And if our regional legacy field money goes into this project, we would hope that they would be given a first right of refusal over a team from the north coming down, okay, to use it. But after those regional member organizations have gotten their weekends, you've got people fighting over and clamoring over sanctioned tournament weekends that they can't find in northern Utah. There's 6 regions. We're 6, and we're basically everything from I-70 south down here. Up north, you've got 5 other regions, and they're all fighting because we will not, by policy, authorize more than 2 sanctioned tournaments on the same weekend within the same regional boundary. So you've also got a plethora of clubs up in Salt Lake area and Ogden up to Provo that would love to come down here and do a summer tournament. Okay, you've also got summer games that you can, the amount of teams you can put on those fields, guys, is crazy.
Watch our summer game soccer numbers dwindle over the last few years.
You have, and I'll keep my opinion on why that has happened to myself.
Over the last 3 years back.
It has upticked. They're not involved with us. And a lot of people will not go to non-sanctioned U.S. youth soccer tournaments. And I won't go into the reasons here because it'll get political, and it's nothing against summer games. It's just that it is what it is, and it isn't what it isn't. So I can give you an example right now. 2 weeks from now, President's Day weekend, one of our sanctioned tournaments down in St. George is at 300 teams, the Rage Invitational. Okay. So there's plenty of people that are going to want to come down here. You've also got lacrosse. You've got U.S. youth football. I mean, what's the Sun U IFL football that I think is affiliated up here as well. I think they have a tournament thing in November that they have in Mesquite, and they have one, a preseason kind of get together tournament that I believe they hold in Cedar that could be 5 times as big on that facility there. And that, let me tell you what, if we think soccer travels well, youth football, holy crap. I mean, they've got 1 coach per kid. It's amazing. Dads are living vicariously on those football lines like it's unbelievable. I don't even know how the kids, I mean, everybody's screaming. It's amazing.
I wish we had a coach per kid. It would have been a lot easier.
Yeah, so it's impressive. So anyway, there's not a limit. We've seen a little bit of a downtick in the last couple of years, partially because the weather we've had in Mesquite has been very abnormally cold for 3 years in a row until last year. Our weather kind of got better this year. So we're seeing an uptick again in our weather pattern. But your summers, you guys are in a perfect spot. If you can keep that grass green, and I'll tell you what, they did a very good job on the new stuff at Little Valley. So if the same people are going to be working for you that did Little Valley and the Sullivan project, they know what they're doing. And from what I understand, both of those projects came in at budget or lower, and they still look really good. And the 2 grass fields at the Mesquite Sports and Events Complex have been used to death, and they're still in fantastic shape. They look like a PGA fairway. Absolutely beautiful.
I want to be conscientious of the others, but I do have one question I think you might best be able to answer. Other than the Wasatch Front, Vegas, Mesquite, who would be our competitors? Who else has, soccer fields, complexes, anything like that?
No one outside of those areas you mentioned has any complexes of any sort. There's nothing. I mean, we're clamoring for, and our interest in this literally is for these kids from your community, so they have a place to play their home games. It's difficult to get in at Bicentennial all the time because of conflicts, and guess what? There's every reason to have those conflicts. Everybody needs to use the fields. So, it is what it is. But I would promise you, with every bit of experience that I've got, you build a complex that looks like that, you're going to be turning people away within 3 or 4 years and realizing it's not quite big enough to do what you want to do. So you figure 7 full-size fields times that by 18 per field teams is how many tournament teams you can have per field for an educated guess. Maybe a little bit more than that, depending on your time parameters, but in daylight, if they're lit. So that's 126 teams, which is a big tournament. You times that by 16 players per team. So anyway, I don't want to take any more time so these people can talk to you, but unless anybody's got anything else pertinent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Kidder, Cedar City resident. I don't really care for soccer. Don't care about it at all. Think it's a great sport. I'm glad you enjoy it. I like shooting ranges, and I would like the city to spend $14 million to build a shooting range on this facility. And that would be absolutely ridiculous. I can bring a $2 million NRA grant, but it would still be ridiculous. The city needs firehouses. The city needs infrastructure improvement. The city needs so many things, better water supply, better sewage treatment. It is not the city's place to be spending $14 million to give some kids a place to play soccer. Have we lost our minds? Have we forgotten the role of government? I mean, good heavens. Not to mention, you know who has fields like this? St. George. And they would probably move their games up here because it's not so hot during soccer season. Where would they stay? In our hotels, right? The hotels that are booked solid for the entire Shakespeare season. The hotels that we don't have any vacancies during that time of the year. We can bring all the traffic we want here. We don't have any place to put them. We don't have restaurants to feed them in. Now, if you build it, maybe they will build some restaurants and maybe they will come for the 5-6 months out of the year that the facility is usable. Nobody wants to play right now. You guys want to play soccer right now? No? God bless you. I was out shooting yesterday. I maybe I understand that passion, but no. I don't think we're going to attract that kind of traffic when our hotel rooms are empty and we have the space for kids to come play soccer. So yeah, it's a great idea. It's a great concept. It's an awesome, and if there was all the money in the world, it'd be great. And if it was the role of government, it would be great. And I'm sorry, but a $600,000 to $1 million contribution to do this is a drop in the bucket in a $14 million budget line item.
We understand. That's why we're working.
Awesome. So yeah, I would just urge people, plus the traffic that's going to come into that community below, and I'm concerned about water flow into that community. That's a lot of irrigation that's going to go on those fields. And where is that water going to go after it leaves those fields? Into that community? We have a lot of places in this city that are sinking. I'd be really worried about all that water. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
My name is Addison Ayano and I'm 9 years old. Soccer is my passion. I would like nice fields to play on Lake St. George. It would be nice not to have to travel both ways. If we get nice fields like that, I can play. Is my dream to play at a SUU soccer game one day. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
I'm Gabriel Borst. I just have a couple notes that I want to be quick with so others can talk. But my first one was I like the idea of the removal of a field. I go to Mesquite and St. George quite a bit. My club team is in St. George, and I drive down twice a week, so the commute's not that fun. And I know once the season starts, parking is very packed in. And then I know that a lot of people love soccer just like I do here. And then just another point, no position where you put this complex is going to be perfect. No one's ever going to be completely happy with it. But just like you mentioned with the income that they make in Mesquite, I will be heading down this weekend, spending quite a bit of money. But with those tournaments, that'll bring in quite a bit of money, and that could be placed wherever it might be needed with the income. And then one of the last points is healthy youth. I know I'm pretty skinny, and if I didn't play soccer, I'd be pretty obese maybe. I love food, and yeah. Also, I know that a lot of places here in Cedar that we play soccer at get beaten up because the limited amount of fields we have. So having somewhere else to play on. I know that Sullivan gets played on quite a bit, and they do a well job at maintaining those, but just having somewhere else to play on that's not continuously beaten on can just keep up the well maintenance of the other fields in general. Thank you.
So I'm Steve Nelson. I remembered.
Good job.
So I'm the current president of the organization Terry referred to as the member organization with Utah Youth Soccer, formerly known as CCFC, now Southern Utah Surf. The people that are here today, I think if we were to ask them, I think there's less of a passion about where it is from the soccer community as there is just about the need. And I think that's, there's a lot of, you guys have a tough job because right now you got people vying for hockey, you got people vying for basketball, you got people vying for a grass complex I like better than soccer. I like Terry's point that we shouldn't pigeonhole it into that one use because there's a whole lot of other people that will use it that I think we should keep in mind and take into account. So to me, it's more of that recognition. I do disagree with the gentleman that spoke earlier. This is not the role of government from the federal level. It's not the role of government from the state level, but this absolutely is the role of government at a local level. Because at the local level, we can make these kind of decisions of what we want our community to look and feel like, what amenities we want our community to have. And I believe that what it brings to the community to have amenities enhances the quality of life, helps in every way to add to greater tax base because people want to be there. There's so many pluses to having these kinds of things in a local community. So I guess more than anything, I wanted to stand and just plead with you to not let another 2 years go by from when we first started this. This is a very, very fast growing sport. And when you actually look at the other sports in connection with soccer is going like this, and many others have plateaued or are dropping. And these kids love it. I wish my kids loved basketball because I loved basketball, but my kids have all loved soccer. So I've had to learn soccer. And that's how I think most youth are when they play it. So I just plead with you to please keep this in the priorities of it moving forward in whatever direction you view as the best and prudent for taxpayer dollars. But don't let it stop. Keep it moving forward. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carly Hewlett, and I wasn't planning on coming up, but I'm a resident in that area, and I know that all of us have been fighting for some type of a park for us to play at. Kids have nowhere to go. You have a lot of moms that don't have vehicles. Dad takes it off to work, and where are they supposed to go? During school hours, where do they play? They can't go to the schools, right? So where do they go? We've been fighting to have some type of park, something up there for a long time. We pay tax dollars too. We pay money to play soccer. We spend a lot of money going down south. I just think that, yes, there's a huge need of something in that community. You can't just forget about us because there's too many rocks or things won't grow as well. We deserve stuff too on that side of town. Anyways, thank you.
My name's Curtis Nielsen. I've been involved with soccer now for 4 years. I've got both of my daughters that play and my sons that play. And this is something that we are in dire need of. If you've ever been on Bicentennial on a Saturday, it is a nightmare to find any partnering. And also it's a hazard for our kids as they're crossing the street. Balls are flying into the street. And something as master plan such as this, I wholeheartedly support. I'm happy to contribute whatever I need to get it going. Also, I've reviewed the master plan side of this, the budgeting side of it. And from my opinion, I'm also a civil engineer, and with Sunrise Engineering and what they do, this is Joe's specialty. I know him personally, and I support, and I believe his estimate is probably pretty darn close for preliminary phasing on that. So also, you think about the numbers of kids that are going into this. I was just recently talking to some of those that are involved with the surf club. They've got roughly about 500 or 600 that are signed up for recreation. You have another 500 or 600 for club soccer themselves. So you have over 1,000 kids that are involved in soccer. and you really have Bicentennial that's available, that's open for our use, aside from the schools trying to get permission from them. So something like this could be a big, huge opportunity for our community, bring in different things. Summer games could become a sanctioned tournament again, and there's a lot of other opportunities that Terry touched on. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no one else, we appreciate all of you that have come and expressed your opinions one way or another, and especially the youth that are here. That I know there's some that are over reading and probably doing homework. So thank you for spending your late Wednesday night with us and being part of the process and seeing how government works and what it's like to start with a project and how it comes to fruition. Are there other comments from the council? Okay, then we will continue on with our agenda.
Thanks all.
And we will
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
give you all a minute to.
Just 3/4 are up.
Good job, Derek. Find us some money. Let's do this.
14 and a half minutes.
Okay.
We should just play soccer, Ron.
We will continue with item number 4. Give them a couple more seconds. Okay, item number 4, public hearing to consider zone change from dwelling multiple use to student housing district for property located at 170 North 400 West.
I'm Brad Bryan.
Thank you.
One of the players. I'm the potential purchaser of this property and the driver of this as well. Same as the other project we talked about. Same buyer, same seller, same basic idea. Bob had to take off. He wasn't planning on the change in the schedule. But what we're requesting on 400 West at 170 North is switching from what is currently R3 to have the student housing zone applied. Once again, this is consistent with the general plan and consistent with some surrounding neighbors. We intend to keep a house that seems to be important to a lot of people. I think it's known as the Higbee House, potentially, something along those lines. Great Victorian style architecture. We plan to keep that and use access on the north property line back to a building that will be a 2-level fourplex. It will house approximately 16 students and will be taking advantage of lower parking requirements due to its proximity to the school. So on this particular project, I'm a little more definitive of what exactly we will do if you have any specific questions. But in summary, we plan to keep the house, relatively small building. There are similar projects all around it. I don't think it'll be a major impact as far as I can see. Any questions? All right.
Yeah, I went and looked at the property and that was my question, whether you were going to put, a 4-story up there, but it doesn't look like there's a lot of room for parking around there.
No.
So it is just.
No, it's a relatively low profile building. Will be 2 stories, each story being roughly 8-inch plus your floor joists. So 16, 19 feet to the top plate, something 16 to 19 feet, something like that.
Similar to the ones to the south of it?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I have drawings if you're interested.
Okay. Thank you.
And, and considering the zoning change, even if the plan is to build 2 stories, we have to assume you may be building, 50 feet or so for SHD. And even so, I've pulled the property records. Every neighbor is a rental or a business. You're within 100 feet of a state highway, major road. If there is anywhere to put student housing, this would be it. So I really don't have any qualms about this one.
Well, some of the concern was that we would put a 50-foot building on a 0 lot line, but that's just really kind of a silly argument. We're constrained by parking. Even with the reduced parking, the most we can get on there is bedrooms for 16 students.
Right.
In addition to the house that does have students as well.
Are there any other comments, questions from council? Then we'll open the public hearing on this item.
Laura Henderson, I'll just make it brief. I'm just really troubled by the fact that we keep, and I know anybody can buy a piece of property, but I'm troubled by the fact that there seems to be this misunderstanding that there's need for more and more and more and more student housing projects. I mean, I can relate specifically to the Minear project that's going in between 300 West and Dewey Avenue. When Mr. Minear went to the student housing director, I don't know if you've talked to them, and they said that by the end of this decade, they anticipate a decline in enrollment. So their need for student housing projects isn't there. Thank you.
One note to that, and I've said this before, but just for future reference, so people know where I stand on this issue, contingent on site applicability and everything. Even though student enrollment may decrease over time, and even though student housing demand may increase or decrease, as long as we have students driving in from the outskirts of town, we're increasing the cost of students living in our community. They're going to keep junking up our roads with their junk cars from their parents, usually the third or fourth hand-me-down. And anything that gets students within walking distance of campus, there will continue to be demand for that. As housing is built near campus, it will decrease demand for apartments in the outskirts, but generally, as long as everything else is suitable, I'm going to continue to advocate for more places that keep students from needing to drive from outside of town.
Is there any other comments in the public hearing?
Laura Henderson again. With all due respect, kids are not going to quit bringing their cars. No matter how close you get them to live, they're not going to walk to Walmart in 30-degree weather. They're going to drive. So it doesn't matter how close in proximity. It's the demand that's not necessarily the cars. They're still going to bring their cars.
I recognize that as a problem as well.
Yeah, they're still going to bring their cars.
My name is Sean Wharton again. I wanted to comment that I familiarized myself with this project just a little bit, and I think it's a really great example of a balance between historic preservation and growth. I mean, as far as that goes, I don't think you could get a better application to see that street preserved in the historic nature and the nice neighborhood aspect, and then to see the growth be economic stimulus or whatever. I did just take in a student from Africa this last week, and they have no car whatsoever. So there are people coming here with no cars, and that's just as a rebuttal to what I just heard. I mean, there are students coming here, and another note is I just got done developing a fiveplex that has five 3-bedroom units, and the whole project sold before the completion of the project was even done. So as a guy who just moved to town and said there's no need for it, I built a building and I couldn't even get it finished fast enough for the units to sell. So I mean, I don't know, that's demand in my opinion. So just FYI. Thank you.
Laura Henderson again. In rebuttal to that, if you go over to the Gateway Student Housing Complex, most of the students that you'll find in there, and Scott Hunt has done the research on that, most of the students, and the reason they don't have vehicles is because they're from Asia. And also over the Christmas break, President Scott Wyatt was in Africa recruiting students. I'm sure most of them aren't bringing their cars from Africa. So, I mean, that's where a lot of the student population is coming
All right,
from.
we don't need to fight over.
I'm just, I didn't know if there was an awareness of that there has been some research done as to why some of the students don't have vehicles. Thank you.
We kind of went through this routine in the.
Will you state your name again?
That's Brad Bryan. We went through this in the Planning Commission meeting where Ms. Henderson approached the microphone 7, 8 more times. Although I appreciate her concern for my potential financial failure, I hasten to add, I'm in this business. I do it successfully. We fill up every year. We fill every bed. We are already 50% full for next year. By the end of this month, we will be 75% full. And by the end of March, we will be 100% full. I was particularly bothered by Ms. Henderson's implication that it's somehow undesirable to rent to people from China or Africa. I just wanted to call her on that. Thank
Okay,
you.
we don't need to fight anymore about where
We're
people are
done.
coming from or anything. We're sticking to the zoning related specifically to this project.
Hello, this is my very favorite thing to do, not. Elise Carden, and I am the chairman with the Historic Preservation Commission. And I really appreciate them keeping the house. And I think it's a very nice blend. I'm usually very opposed to apartment complexes being built, but I agree. I think it's a great place for it. They're all rentals right there. Across the street are going to be apartment buildings as well. Why not keep it right there? My concern is how do we preserve that house and make sure that that home is preserved and kept that way? Because it is a huge, to a lot of people here in town and the historic significance in Cedar City, that is a big deal. And so that would be my concern more so than the apartments. I think it's a great place for them. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
And I'll just throw a crazy idea out there for the house. I don't know what your ideas are, but maybe we could turn it into a, keep the exterior the same, but put some produce in there so the kids can walk to shop so they can leave their cars at home. I know that's crazy, but something like that.
Are there any other comments? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and put this on the action agenda.
Yes, please.
All right, item number 5, consider a request to waive impact fees for an 8-unit affordable housing development.
Good evening. I'm Scott Harmon with Utah Housing Corporation and Amy Thornton with Housing Plus. Hopefully you have a packet that we submitted, but it's for an 8-unit affordable housing project that we're building here in Cedar City. And as land costs and construction costs continue to go up, we try to look at ordinances that cities have to see if there's any way they can help us. And so I think you do have an ordinance that says the city council can waive impact fees, and so we're here to request that. Any questions?
Just want the council to know and publicly that we don't waive impact fees. We even charge ourselves impact fees. I can't remember the last time we waived an impact fee. We've had many affordable housing units come into town over the last number of years. They've all paid impact fees. Those increasing land costs and infrastructure costs, they hit us too when we go to provide increased infrastructure due to the growth, which has helped to be offset by the impact fees. So before you waive impact fees, please consider our history of not doing so.
And granted, impact fees are still one of the subjects I'm going to school on. But my understanding is that a significant portion of that, it covers the city's cost in acquiring the water rights for those residents. Is that correct?
Currently, absolutely no impact fees go to buy water rights. There's a different fee set up for that. We have a different scheme set up for that. That's the water acquisition fee. It's not included in impact fees.
Okay, thank you.
At this time,
point.
yes. The impact fees that would go to pay for increased capacity in our sewer system, water system, park system, public safety systems, and road systems. That's how we use them.
Okay.
I guess what I need you to explain what the reasoning behind the request, because otherwise, I mean, would have everyone that's building a project come in and ask for the same thing. So
yeah. Well, we're really asking for the city to be a partner in this project. And as such, we have a deed restriction on this project so that the housing remains affordable for 15 years. The projects we do across the state, these crown projects, they're rent-to-own affordable housing. And I really like them. I mean, you have other affordable housing that comes into your city, right? Big multifamily projects. These are rent-to-own. So these tenants who are 50% of the area median income, who aren't going to have the opportunity to purchase a home in a normal circumstance, are able to come in and rent this home at an affordable rate for 15 years, and then to have the opportunity to purchase that at 15 years. We've built these in Cedar City in the past. We've got 6 units already in Gemini Meadow subdivision. We have another 6 houses, single family houses that are here. But we're trying to help you fulfill your affordable housing plan, and in turn help us bring that affordable housing to your city. If we get benefit of impact fees, we can bring more housing to Cedar City and to other communities in the state. So we're going to build affordable housing one way or another, but we're looking for partnerships with cities and communities to help us do that.
Just to ensure that everybody present, which has dwindled significantly, but also those watching at home are aware of kind of where I stand on affordable housing. I do think it's very important that we have affordable housing. However, especially in this location, I mean, yeah, it's great if people can afford the roof, but you're over 2 miles from even the nearest gas station or convenience store. So if I were, and I'm not saying I may not ever be inclined to waive impact fees given our history, but even if I were, for the sake of affordable housing and making a project work, one that's located so far from amenities, that's going to increase the cost of living for these people who need a lower cost of living. I just don't think this is a great place to do it. And I wouldn't be inclined to support through city and taxpayer funds, essentially, because what we're doing is we're asking the taxpayer to subsidize this if we're waiving impact fees. And I'm not inclined to have the taxpayer subsidize increasing people's cost of living by incentivizing them to live far from amenities.
I actually have been to a couple of your ribbon cuttings and senior homes. It's a great project. I'm totally in support of the project. I just have concerns. I don't understand when other people are trying to build affordable housing. Also, we can't afford to waive those impact fees because, as Tyler mentioned, that just spreads it out over the rest of the taxpayers to pay for that infrastructure. And I don't have the opposition to where you are. I think the homes that you've built out there already, like great projects, met the people that moved into those, and it's a great project for them. So I commend you on what you're doing, but I have concerns whether we can look at waiving those fees because those are actual costs that our taxpayers are having to foot. So, but we'll have discussion over the next week and get back with you next week.
Thank you. Okay, we'll put this on the action agenda.
Yep.
All right, item number 6, presentation from Utility Service Partners.
There we go. Is that better? Can we hear me? Am I there? There we go.
Okay, I won't.
Thank you.
You need one for Scott. Oh, this is the national.
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate your patience and giving me the opportunity to introduce you to the National League of Cities Service Line Program, which is also endorsed by the Utah League of Cities and Towns. I'm here because I had the opportunity to speak with City Manager Bittman about our program, and he felt like it would be a good idea for you all to have a look at what it is we do, how we do it, how we benefit a community, how we benefit homeowners, and you can take it under consideration as to whether or not you feel it's something that you'd like to make available here. So I work for a company called Utility Service Partners. This is a program that we have offered for 17 years. It's one that we completely administer. And basically what I'm going to do is go through some of the specifics of how it is we make our program available and some of the details behind that. Next slide, please. So we have been offering this program, as I said, for 17 years. We've been endorsed by the National League of Cities since 2010. So we have a long-standing relationship with them. We've been endorsed by the Utah League of Cities and Towns going on, I believe, 2 years now. Excuse me. We have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. We're the recipient of awards for marketplace ethics, which as I go through how our program operates, you'll see that the transparency that our program provides in a community is the reason that we receive such awards. And we are the only service line company that makes our program available via a partnership with the community. And you'll see why it is that we do that as well. Next slide, please. Actually, you can skip this one in the interest of time. Currently, we're working with 650 plus municipalities and utilities across North America. There are 8 Utah municipalities that currently participate. I'll be going over those in a few moments when I get to that portion. Next slide, please. So the whole purpose of our program is aging infrastructure is problematic for cities and homeowners alike. Lateral lines are subjected to the same elements as public lines. So you have ground shifting, fluctuating temperatures, tree root penetration, corrosion, all those types of things. The difference between public and private is on the public side, those lines are maintained and upgraded. On the private side, homeowners are kind of left behind. So that's where the National League of Cities got involved. They had heard about programs like ours, and they wanted to find one that they could vet and make available to communities all across the country, whether you're a member of the National League of Cities or not. And we're the company that they chose to carry their endorsement. Another issue with those failed lines, obviously they waste thousands of gallons of water. They increase costs not only for the community, but for homeowners with increased utility rates, presented environmental hazard as well. So there are a lot of issues involved with failing infrastructure on the private side. Since it's not able to be addressed the same way as the public side. Another issue is a common homeowner misconception is that the municipality is responsible for the maintenance of the water and sewer lines on homeowners' property. As we know, that's not the case. So typically what happens is most homeowners don't know that they're responsible for that until they have an issue and they're informed by typically someone from the city once it's been investigated that, you know, this is yours to deal with. Next step, usually they call their insurance company. They find out that their homeowner's insurance doesn't cover it either. And there's that frustration of having to deal with this. So our program helps reduce wasted time, money, and resources for the municipality, and it reduces frustration for the homeowner as well. Next slide, please. So where that frustration comes from, obviously, is that financial shock of that unplanned expense, right? So we live in a time where 4 out of 10 Americans say they can't even afford a $400 emergency. 59% of homeowners have had some kind of repair emergency over the last year. So there's a lot of folks that don't have the money to address these issues that are dealing with these issues. What I believe speaks well to what it is that our program does is 78% of homeowners surveyed believe that the municipality or utility provider should educate them on that responsibility and any preventive measures that are available to them as well. So that's where we come in. Next slide, please. So there's no cost to the municipality to participate in our program. There are no public funds used, and it's administered completely by us. So we take care of the marketing, the billing, the claims, the customer service, and even setting up local contractors to become part of our network. There's a component of our program that's an ongoing revenue stream for a municipality, and I'll explain how that ties into the benefits. Ultimately, what our program functions as for every community where it's available is a free public awareness campaign. So what we do is we mail a letter to homeowners that educates them on their lateral line responsibilities and explains to them that there's this voluntary program that's available to them that they can choose to participate in. Excuse me. What that should do at a bare minimum is reduce the number of calls that the city receives from homeowners when they have these issues because they've been proactively educated. So that helps save resources on the municipal side. For homeowners who decide to participate, they get that peace of mind of knowing that instead of having to deal with this issue on their own, they call us at a toll-free number and we dispatch a local licensed contractor to handle the work for them. We have 2 call centers that are staffed 24 hours a day, every day of the year, including holidays. They're both here in the United States. One is just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The other's in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We use local licensed contractors for a couple of reasons. One of them is once the homeowner has the issue and has initiated the action by calling us, everything now takes place between us and the contractor. So the homeowner doesn't have to worry about those things. We pay those contractors directly, which means we infuse money then into your local economy when we're paying for them for the work that they performed. The other reason we use local contractors, they're going to know what permits they need. They're going to know what the codes are. So all the work is done properly and done up to the city standards as you expect it to be done. And lastly, but not least, we use local contractors because we want to ensure that everybody within the community is comfortable with who it is we're working with. So we even put those contractors through a vetting process to make sure they're qualified. Just to give you an example, we make sure they're licensed, bonded, insured, have the proper equipment to do all the work. No open complaints with the Better Business Bureau, and we go a step further and we conduct background checks and drug screens on the individuals that work for those companies. So this is something we take very seriously because our reputation is at stake with these contractors as well. Next, please. I'll go over the coverage quickly. Water and sewer line coverage are 2 separate programs, but they're set up the same. Basically, it's homeowner protection for broken, cracked, leaking pipes, tree root penetration, thawing of frozen external water lines, clogs that need to be cleared out. What homeowners receive for their coverage is up to $8,500 per repair occurrence. So every time they have an issue, up to $8,500 is available to address that issue. That does include public street and public sidewalk cutting if it's necessary. We provide the homeowner with unlimited service calls, so there's no restriction on how many times they can call us when they have an issue. We do not charge them a service fee when we dispatch the contractor, so that's part of their coverage. There's no deductible they have to meet, and there's no annual or lifetime limit on their coverage as well. Everything is set up on a month-to-month basis with the homeowner, so they're able to opt in or opt out at any time they would like without penalty. And again, because everything takes place between us and the contractor, they don't have to fill out a bunch of forms or paperwork or spend a lot of time on the phone or anything like that. And lastly, when they enroll, we don't do an inspection. There's a 30-day waiting period before their coverage begins. So we don't go out and look at their lines before we decide whether or not to extend coverage. Next, please. Third product we offer is set up exactly the same as the other 2, with the exception that it's $3,000 of coverage per repair occurrence. And this is for all water, sewer, drain lines that are inside the home after the point of entry, including lines that are under the slab or the basement floor, as well as clogged toilets. So 3 separate programs, very comprehensive coverage, very easy for participants to understand how it is that it works for them. Next, please. I mentioned the revenue stream that is a component of our program. I'll say right away, this is something that's entirely optional. Some communities participate, some don't. The way it would work if you participated in this component is you would receive 50 cents per month per each one of these paid warranty agreements. That accrues throughout the course of the year, and we pay it out in the form of a royalty each January. Some examples of how existing partners use those funds. The most popular is supplementing a low-income utility assistance program. So every community typically has something like that, and they'll direct funds from our program into that because they're always insufficiently funded. I mean, the money always runs out, right? Offset the cost of a water bill if somebody has a leak. Orem used to donate it to a local charity, but they no longer participate in the revenue component. Use it towards your state league dues, really whatever you want to do with it. In the event that you should decline that revenue component, you feel like that's not something that you want to participate in, we pass the savings directly onto the residents. We don't keep that money. Each one of the products decreases by 50 cents. So either way, there's either a benefit for the community or there's a benefit for homeowners that decide to participate. Our marketing approach, we only market by direct mail. So there will be no telemarketers. There's no door-to-door salespeople. We have a maximum of 3 mail campaigns that we do per year. So we're not going to overwhelm people with direct mail either. One thing that is part of the reason why we have the endorsement of the National League of Cities and also the Utah League is because we would never mail anything into your community without the partnership and also without the city reviewing and approving and even having input on that marketing letter before each of those marketing campaigns. So no letter is sent out in your community until someone from the city has said, this is okay, you can do this. That marketing clearly states that the city doesn't provide the program, that we do through a partnership with the city, and directs them to contact us. It informs them that it's voluntary, that the products are all separate. They can enroll in whatever manner they choose as well. What we ask for in this partnership is use of the city logo and a generic signature from the city on that marketing material. There's some specific reasons we do this. One of them is it creates an economy of scale that allows us to offer the best possible benefits at the lowest rates that we can. So simply put, more people tend to participate, which means we can provide benefits without service fees and deductibles and so on. Also, the partnership provides for that transparency since you're reviewing materials before they're sent out in the community. In Utah, something that's unique, I haven't come across this in any other state yet, but Utah Senate Bill 45, which was passed in May of 2017, says that the provider of culinary water should proactively educate homeowners of this responsibility. So our program would actually satisfy that. I believe the Senate bill, or the state bill, excuse me, says 2 times a year. We do it 3 times a year, and we provide a solution that's voluntary as well. And it also maximizes the proactive education of the homeowner. So again, that minimum benefit of reduced number of calls coming in. Next, please. So just some quick odds and ends. Currently serving over 4 million customers. Over the last 3 years, we've completed 1.34 million jobs. So that's 1 job every 49 seconds is what it averages out to. So, we've got good contractors that know what they're doing. We've saved customers over $454 million in repair costs over the last 3 years. 9 out of every 10 customers surveyed has recommended our program to friends, family, and neighbors. And then for the Utah specific, these are the cities that are currently participating: Orem, Clearfield, Salt Lake, Kaysville, Payson, Tooele, Roosevelt, Washington Terrace. Currently, over 36,900 residents are enrolled in our program in Utah. And over the last 3 years, we've paid over $6.3 million in repair costs on behalf of those participating homeowners. And lastly, what we always like to say in the nature of this relationship, the partnership that we form with you, is that we will become a trusted steward of your brand and reputation. So we take it every bit as serious as what you do. That being said, I know that's an awful lot of information. Are there any questions that you have for me at this time?
Our participation is limited to adding our name to this. You're doing all the billing.
Correct.
You're creating contracts and
correct. Else. We completely administer the program.
So what is the price point?
So there's the 2 different pricing levels dependent upon whether or not the city participates in the revenue. So if you're to participate in the revenue, water coverage is only $5.75 a month. Sewer coverage is only, why am I drawing a blank? $7.75 a month. I'm sorry. And in-home plumbing coverage is $9.99 a month. If you decline the revenue portion, each one of those products decreases by 50 cents. And there are individual programs as well. So again, if somebody just wants the water or just wants a sewer, they can choose whatever they like. When we put our pricing together, the thought behind it is so that the people who are the most financially vulnerable can still participate without having to make a big sacrifice. Because let's face it, those are the folks that if something goes wrong with a water or sewer line, they're the ones that are hit hardest.
So do you work with power companies, other companies to promote this product? The reason I'm going to ask you that is I've had several homeowners. I administrate a homeowners association in the city. And I've had several homeowners call me with different companies, one being our power supplier, Rocky Mountain Power, offering a similar program. And they're wondering if it's legit or if it's just a scam. But why the uptick all of a sudden? I wonder, it just seems like there's been a rash. I've had a rash of phone calls from different, like I say, usually power companies or gas company or something else.
Sent out a letter too.
Yes.
Dominion Energy, the gas guys did.
Yeah, and I'm just curious. How does that relate to you? I know you're involved with NLC, but
correct.
Do you do other companies like gas or?
Yeah, so
big picture, I guess, is what I'm looking.
No, and it's a great question. So the product that I represent specifically is the NLC service line program. Through our parent company, there are partnerships with energy companies. It's a different channel. So, and in some cases, I don't know if Rocky Mountain is a partner of ours or not because I don't work in that energy channel. But there are a couple other companies that do that. There aren't very many, but there are a couple other companies that do what it is that we do as well. It's just that we're the only company that does it exclusively through a partnership with the community so that it's mutually beneficial.
And so the, sorry, yeah,
it's okay.
I'm over here. So basically you're asking for our permission to use our logo to lend legitimacy so people think it's legitimate. And in exchange, are you asking for any kind of exclusivity agreement, anything like that?
So that's a great question as well. And you brought up a good point to tie into Councilmember Adams, what he brought up. When we partnership with a community, it does lend that legitimacy. So there's less confusion within a community when those letters are being received. As far as exclusivity, the only thing we ask for, we don't, if there's another company around here that does something similar, we don't ask that you keep them out. We ask for exclusivity with the use of the logo, because obviously if there are multiple companies that are using your logo and a signature from the city of, that would become confusing then again for homeowners.
Okay. And I guess now I have a question for staff relating to that. Would it perhaps be prudent if we were to entertain something like this to put out some kind of, I don't know if you'd call it an RFP because we're not really asking, but request for bids or see if there's any other interest in this kind of thing, just so that we can stay above board and ensure that if there are other parties with perhaps competitive rates or other services, that we're not doing residents a disservice by solely associated with and endorsing one company over another.
So I suppose we could put out an RFP, but normally we wouldn't do that where this isn't costing us anything.
Right.
So typically we would not use this microphone ever again. We would not put on an RFP on something like this. So I just by way of kind of vetting them a little bit, I talked to the Orem folks.
Mhm.
They're one of the cities that are signed up with this program. They like the program. They've had, in a nutshell, they said the newer parts of town, not so many takers on the service. The older parts of town, people really enjoy the service because they know there's older infrastructure in the homes, and this is a pretty good way to insure against that. So they've had a very positive experience with this program.
Procedurally, if you want to pursue this, we'd put it on the action agenda for the council to vote to enter into an agreement. So you don't have to make up your mind tonight either.
Right.
Yes, unless Councilwoman Hartley has.
I had a question on your price sheet that you had in the packet.
Yes.
It's got the prices listed initially. So is this kind of an introductory offer, or does that just allow you to do normal price increases, or what does that initially mean?
Correct. So by initially, what it means is there's language in that marketing agreement that would allow under specific terms, and I believe we are required to notify you 12 months in advance of any type of agreement, if I recall correctly, as far as pricing increase. So it's not like here's an introductory offer and then 90 days later, wham,
Okay.
here you go. So I can
Cable
tell you,
company?
I'm sorry?
Not the cable guys?
We are not, no. So I've been with the company 3 years, and my director has been with the company for 6 years. And the only price increase there has been is on the in-home plumbing product, because that was something that was added 4 or 5 years ago. And the initial price point was a little too low, and it was wildly popular. So they needed to make an adjustment there, because if clogged toilets are covered, who wants to deal with that anymore? Right. So, but the water and sewer pricing has been the same for at least 6 years that
Okay.
I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But it says that you can make an adjustment not to exceed 50 cents a month in a 12-month period.
That's what it is. Thank
The
you.
owner. Yeah. Unless otherwise agreed by the parties, but.
Correct.
So you've never seen that happen, or you've jacked it 50 cents a month?
No, it has not.
Okay.
And I
That's always
think
everybody's concern.
I think Orem would attest to that. I believe Orem has been a partner with us for about 6 years now, maybe even 7. So I'm sure they would attest to that as well, that we don't increase our prices.
All right.
Okay.
Tom can ask his question, then you can ask your question.
Go ahead, Tom. You go ahead first. You want me to go first?
I don't care who goes, just one of you right
Okay, I'll go
now.
and I'll make it really fast. Carter Wilkie, my question is directed to Mr. Lyon. And this comes from my background. For those of you who don't know, I actually am dual licensed in real estate and property and casualty insurance in the state of Utah. I was an insurance agent for 11 years. There are companies in Utah that do cover lateral lines. Some homeowners insurance companies do cover that, and there already is coverage for that. There is a lot that don't, so I think this is something that's good. But my question would just be, in any of your advertising piece, does it urge our residents to check with their insurance company before signing up for your service to make sure that it's not something they're already paying for?
To answer your question, honestly, I do not know if that is in the letter template that we will provide to a city initially. However, you do, as a city, have input on that message, and that is something, if it's not in there, you could request. But I would have to check to be sure. I mean, the letter that we have that we start out with, there's like 3 different versions of it that they'll typically provide to a city, so that every time there's a campaign run, it's not the exact same letter. So I can check into that, and that's a great question. But again, I would also put that back to you, that if you wanted that in there and it's not in there, it can be in there. But I will check on that.
Yes. Booth for 1 second. Good evening, Tom Jett. This is just benign questions, but I'll ask them, and please do not think I'm thinking less of your business. 2 questions come to mind. Is this an insurance regulated product?
Yes.
Okay. And question number 2, if the city enters in, I think personally it's a fantastic concept, but that's just my opinion. And the question number 2 is, if the city enters into an agreement with an exclusivity with the logo, if that's the path that the city wishes to go with, does the city have a time that they can say, no, we're going to withdraw at 6 months, or a 30-day cancellation period, or anything similar to that? Those are the 2 questions I had, and thank you for your answer on that first one.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, so that's a good question. The way our standard marketing agreement is set out is it typically takes about 3 years of the program to be available for you to see about 15 to 20% homeowner participation in a community. So we start with a standard 3-year agreement. Within that agreement, first off, as I had mentioned, no letter gets mailed unless it's approved by the city. So if you're in the standard 3-year agreement and decide you no longer want to participate, every time the account manager sends the letter to whoever the contact is, they say, no, don't mail it. It doesn't get mailed after 3 years. It expires. So you have control over it that way. Also, city attorneys will typically ask for language for some type of an opt-out clause if they don't feel comfortable with that standard agreement. And in that case, there's typically something that'll built in that's the term escapes me, a right to terminate. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of the word. I've been up for a lot of hours. I traveled from Pittsburgh, so I left really early this morning. A right to terminate clause can be put in there as well, as long as it's mutually, the language of it is mutually agreeable between our legal and the city's legal. But yeah, absolutely. So when the agreement is brought into force, it doesn't just stay in force and that's it. You're stuck with it.
Are there any other questions from the council? This will go on the action agenda. You can decide by next week. We appreciate your time and presentation.
Thank you very much. And one last thing I'd like to mention, my contact information is on that slide. So if any of you have any questions, want to reach out to me directly, please do.
You're not flying home now, are you?
No, I'm driving to Las Vegas and flying home tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Be safe out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the staff portion with item number 7, consider bids for the golf course pond liner project.
Jonathan Staff, the City Engineering Department.
Oh, the motorcycles.
This project is to complete the irrigation pond project that's been going on through this winter. The city street department has done a fantastic job in getting the pond excavated out. And now we're at the point where we need to complete the project. This project includes finishing all the earthwork and the liner that's going in for the pond. We received 3 bids and the low bidder was Mel Clark with a bid of $207,970.
Is that 207?
$207,970. Yes. Sorry about that. I've been up a long time too. So, as far as the funding, Jason Norris may want to speak a little bit more about this, but it appears that the amount of the bid exceeds the amount that's remaining in the project, and so there would need to be some additional funding moved in order to complete the project.
How much is that?
Getting killed tonight, right? We don't have weed pullers. We don't have police. We don't have pond money.
We have a $14.5 million project.
Yeah, we got that we got to pay for. It's been a rough night.
Focus.
So as you know, this project is a custom project. You can't just buy a Lego set pond that plugs in, right? There's the geology. So we've been working off of estimates all the way through. We had the street department do as much work as they felt like they were able. They're now on to other things. So this estimate we're thinking is possibly $100,000 more than the budget calls for. There are a few $100,000 in the golf course fund itself. However, they're not currently in this budget line item. So I would have to bring that back to you in a revision, probably in May when we do that final revision. If that's not something council's comfortable with, then we probably either need to reject the bids or come up with some other approaches to this. I don't have those solutions at the moment.
And we can't find a benevolent sponsor for the pond. Or maybe turn it into a fishing ground somehow and plant some trout in there.
I love the idea.
I don't love the idea of golf balls flying at a fishing pond.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
We call that extreme fishing.
Not getting nods here from all of our legal counsel, which is numerous.
We know of no benevolent pond sponsors.
Okay. Dang it.
We could put out an RFP.
So when you say there's money in the golf course fund, but not on this line item, what is it reserved for, or what typical, I mean, is that going to use funding that Jared's coming up here to try and lay claim on? So.
Well, the current project is funded with RAP tax from a few years ago was a piece of it. And then the capital improvement fund is funding the rest. So it would be an appropriate use of the golf course fund balance for something like this. It's not, it doesn't have a specific purpose at the moment. So yeah, this would be appropriate.
So what staff can do over the week is we can email you and tell you what that fund balance is in the golf course.
Okay.
So you'll know what it is. I don't think we have that information offhand.
And I'm sorry if I missed something in the reading. Is this a recurring expense that'll occur every so often? How? Yeah.
No. So
I guess what's the shelf life or?
So Public Works dug the big pond. The contractor will do the final grade of the slope into the pond. Then there'll be some sand or clay material and a rubber liner, and then that will be covered. So as long as that's not punctured, Jonathan, what's the life of the pond liner?
The liner comes with a 20-year warranty. So that's the life that the manufacturer's saying. But usually those liners last quite a bit longer than that.
All right.
For 20 years. So, but that's the warranty that comes with the liner.
We have those at the lake, at the hill. Do we have it in the other pond at the golf course?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so does this one seem awful high then compared to when we did the lake?
The dollar amount?
Yeah. I mean, it could be a different size.
We've got
The
all
lake
time
actually
high.
had 3 liners in it. It had clay liner on bottom, PVC liner, and then the clay liner on top. So.
Yeah, that was about a $2.5 million project.
Yeah, that's
Lake
what I
at
was
the
just
Hills.
curious.
Prices are at all-time highs in construction, whether we do restrooms or asphalt or sod, it's all at all-time highs.
I was just curious.
Are you then suggesting, Jason, that we drain the swamp and revisit it another time when prices are lower?
Finance
he's not.
Group can be very patient. If council would like us to, we can wait for lower prices. I don't know if the golfers or the golf course staff can wait that long.
You're okay with using your funds for this?
Yeah, Jared Barnes from the golf course. I know that I think that was kind of a joke, Tyler.
Yeah,
but
sorry, I had an opportunity to
we
say
do have
drain
a
the
huge
swamp.
irrigation project that is completely funded that is hinging on that pond. So I just wanted to stand up. I know it's been a long night, but if I do this now, I can avoid another city council meeting. I just want to sorry, but Jonathan and the street department both just deserve huge praise from the golf course and quite honestly the taxpayers and citizens. The street department, we can see just from this estimate on moving a lot of dirt, but it's nothing compared to the dirt that the street department's moved the last 2 or 3 months. They've literally saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I wish Ryan or Jeff was here, but I just wanted to thank them. And
They
then
could
also
watch the meeting.
and then also, and Jonathan as well has worked lots and lots of hours when I know he's super busy with lots of other projects. So from the golf course staff, thank you. We appreciate it. And then just if there was any other questions, I thought I'd pop up here.
If you don't allow any housing projects behind it, they won't drive golf balls in the pond. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a joke, but it's getting late.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So do you want this on action so we can get you that other information in the
Yes,
next
please.
week?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, item number 8, consider an ordinance for version defining a bedroom for parking calculations. Oh, also, my reading's getting late.
So over the past several years, the city's had projects come through that they'll bring through a townhome project and they'll say they're 3-bedroom townhomes. The engineering department will do the calculation and say you need this many parking spaces. They'll then come back, whether it's the next day or the next month, and say, oh, they're now 2-bedroom apartment and a den. And then that reduces the parking calculation. So Don and I have seen that. We've then seen them advertised later on as 3 bedrooms. Obviously, that causes concern for the city with our parking calculation is in place to keep off-street parking on site. So Don's put together this definition that would be applicable only when calculating parking.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Members of the City Council, I think Tyler,
You still have to say your name.
Don Boudreau, City Engineering. I think Tyler summed it up pretty well. We have had those issues. The whole intent of that ordinance is to get enough parking on site. And if we're playing around with words like it's a den or an office or exercise room, this definition, and I know it's lengthy, if you get a bureaucrat and an attorney together, we come up with something like this, but we think it's needed in that, so we have a tool to make those calls and get that parking accurate.
Well, and
That's
we
the
had
bottom
this
line.
discussion in Planning Commission, and we probably are part of the problem because you've amended it based upon our discussions. In Planning Commission, we had additional definitions that we wanted added. But I think it does the job.
Yeah, it's a little wordy, but I don't think anyone can walk away from it reading it differently than how it's intended.
All right. Other questions? This will
Any
go
questions?
on the action agenda. All right, we'll put that on the extra agenda.
Oh, so on this one, there's not a public?
Nope.
Oh, okay, cool. Yep, okay, I'm good.
I mean, there's not a formal public hearing. If you would like to,
Just a question about.
then come up to the microphone.
I appreciate this totally. Laura Henderson. So how would you enforce something like that? I appreciate the definition. Thank you very much. That's awesome because obviously it's a concern. So.
So the enforcement of this definition would take place at the planning stage. So this is when your plans come in, your plat for a PUD, what we're looking at. We can get that floor plan and, if it looks like a bedroom, this gives us the tool to say this is a bedroom for parking purposes. So this is at the planning stage when it's enforced.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I'll add, just because I don't want to bring this up right before a vote. I appreciate the attempt to measure bedrooms while keeping the government out of the bedroom, right? That was a joke. So, but, in looking at some of the comments in Planning Commission, and I am hesitant to, I personally, I struggle with this one. I would rather see, if and I know which types of cases brought this on. I'd almost rather see if someone's coming to get their plans approved and they say 2, and then later they're advertising 3. That we assess a heck of a lot of fines and other things. But I just, especially with the people who deal with this every day and their input. Sorry, not that staff doesn't deal with this every day too, but the people in the private sector who said this would overly complicate their jobs. I'm inclined to not approve something like that at this time personally. I realize there are other members here that may feel differently, but I would rather see some kind of enforcement mechanism that's more based on what was represented to the city.
All right. You can make your comment now. Quickly make your comment now.
Good evening, Tom Jett. I have a little bit of a different take on this issue. Number one, the issue is epidemic and terrible. And as people comment about lawyers being liars, well, so are most developers. And it's unfortunate because they sour the group for all the people. And so my thought on this issue was that accomplishes the same thing, but it comes about it more in a method that Tyler's was. And I've had this issue for 6 months now, and I floated it with some staff, and they may think I'm silly, but I'll throw it out anyway. I believe there should be a sworn affidavit signed by the developer that states these will be marketed as 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, whatever they're telling the city is. The appraisal shall be based on that. They're swearing to that under penalty of law. It will also state that the financing will be based on the number of units, the number of bedrooms that they dictate that it is. By doing that, there is a severe penalty because they're swearing under penalty of law that it's going to be what they say it's going to be. And I think Tyler's correct. There needs to be some teeth into this action. This is not a bad way. I just think my way offers some simple teeth. And I think most developers, before they sign their name, are going to say, wow, under penalty of law. And, we can come right after them as soon as we see it's marketed, because they're going to have to market their product sometime. And we can even ask for the documents or from the bank that's part of their initial production and initial offering, saying this is how it's being marketed, or this is how it's being financed, or that type of stuff to show that that's what they're actually doing. Now, that's just my opinion. They both result in the same manner. I come from a little bit different teeth, because the city has been taken advantage of the last 5 years by some very unscrupulous developers, and they're not going to be in Cedar City. Many of them aren't, to clean up the mess and watch the problems that occur. And I plan on being here, and there's a lot of developers that do plan on living their life out in Cedar City. But just my opinion for what it's worth. Thank you for your time, Mayor, and I won't speak anymore this evening other than say good night.
Thank you.
And Tom, thank you. May I suggest an appropriate fine be 14.5 million?
I'm okay with that,
I like that.
but we've got to curb dishonest behavior.
Right. I agree. It's not acceptable what's
Yes.
happened in the past.
They've caused our staff grief, and they've left the ruins for unsuspecting people that have bought their product.
Good evening, Jim Rushton. I think the problem with that is in the initial, when somebody buys that property and lives there, you're talking about parking regulations. That'll change in the next transaction when they sell that property. So I think that I didn't read the verbiage, but I think there is some validity to being able to take care of that in the planning stage. So that's something to think about, because you're not gonna be able to enforce that when they sell that property and the parking restrictions later on. So
Thanks.
I never promised I wouldn't talk again. Carter Wilkie. The one thing, going with what Mr. Jett had to say, because we see this in a couple of developments here in town, the developer can advertise it as having one less bedroom. What this does is it defines the space. If the space is there, it's being counted as a bedroom, because the person advertises it, and so they're not technically breaking the law. If they swear under oath that they're only going to advertise it as a 2-bedroom, that's all they're going to advertise it as. But you go in there, and there's clearly a 3rd bedroom. So, that's what's happening now. We have developments that are getting advertised as less bedrooms than what they actually are when you get in them. And that's what I think this clears up, is it clears that up. So
Well, no matter what, this will go on the action agenda
Yep.
for next week. Thank you, John. Item number 9, consider AIP 03036 airport grant.
Mayor, Council, my name's Nick Holt. I'm the airport manager, and I'll make this quick. I'm here tonight seeking approval to have the mayor sign the grant application for AIP Airport Improvement Program Grant 36. What this project will cover is a reconstruction on Taxway Alpha 1 intersection. That payment is nearing 50 years old. We have the helipad that needs to have some pavement management done, meaning crack seal and the seal coat. And then also we have a project that has been paid for by one of our tenants, and through our agreements, we've agreed to pay that tenant back to the rotating beacon was installed, and that's been included in this grant. So the grant amount is $1,146,242. It's the typical AIP grant. It's a 95% federal and 5% local match. Any questions on this?
Is your local match in your budget?
The local match, yeah, it's in our airport construction fund.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And
So
this project will take place in fiscal year 21. Due to our scheduling, this area is already going to be shut down during the runway construction that we have going on this year. And so to limit the amount of time that area is going to be shut down, we've tried to apply for this grant early and in hopes that we'd receive the money in time to be able to do this portion of the project the same time that portion of the runway is being shut down. So we limit our time that we're being shut down. So
I know there's no such thing as a sure thing, but this is a pretty sure thing because the FAA is requiring it.
yeah, so we have a 5-year capital improvement plan. So this has been on that plan. We've been discussing with the FAA for the 5 years leading up to this. So it's not going to be a surprise to them. We also have entitlement funds that are up to $1 million and that they're planning on using anytime that we have over 10,000 employments at the airport. That the airport is entitled to that funding to complete projects like this.
Just a standard agreement that we've signed in the past. As I've gone through it, there isn't anything out of the ordinary.
All right.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Questions? Good with that going on consent?
Consent, yeah.
All right. Item number 10, consider parade route proposal.
Darren Adams with the police department. Thank you for your patience. I know your minds are probably shutting down, so I'll be brief. I don't know if this is probably not something that is timely. We do have some time to consider this, and I'm not aware of any resolution or guidance from the city that designates the current route as a parade route. And so part of the impetus for this has been the impact on motorists and tourists and those traveling through town. Years ago, it's probably back in 2007, we formed our VIPs, our volunteers, in 2006. And Jeff Hunter came to me back then when I oversaw the VIPs back then and asked if we could kind of take that burden off the street department in taking care of traffic control for parades, which we graciously did. And I believe it has saved the city thousands of dollars over the years. That has become a little bit more of a burden. Our average age for volunteers hovers right around the 60 to 70 years of age range. And so it's a lot of work for them to go out and do it, which they do. Yeah, spring chickens.
Be careful.
I wasn't saying anything negative. I was just saying that,
chicken.
you know,
And you guys don't volunteer.
32, don't complain.
so again, there's a room for discussion on this as we talk about it. I've talked to the university and the representative has been in contact with President Wyatt about this proposal and staging either on 300 West or in the parking lot there. So just an idea. The biggest concern we have is those volunteers shut down 400 and 200 people show up. They're frustrated trying to get to SR 14 or to the west side of town, and it's a difficult place, difficult routes for them to find to get there easily. This would free that up, so 400 and 200 both would allow for easy egress to both sides of town.
I like the idea of having it on that elbow.
Well, and I think
from the university and down Main Street, I think
it would also whether it's students or whatever, can draw them and make the university area part of that. It's the UDOT highway, so nothing changes there. It's about 2/10 shorter, which I don't think is a big deal. The only concern in all transparency would be the sheep parade. And speaking with Paul Nelson, I don't know how many of you know Paul Nelson. He's a died and true rancher. And he said and I knew this because growing up in a livestock family, I know how animals act. He says there's no way I could direct those sheep down 300 west to this point and then turn them again. So that may be the one exception, perhaps, is that parade would stay the same.
And
I don't know.
that parade is less do you think with the attendance, if you cut off the part on Center Street Center Street, that you could maybe jam everybody in between Center and 400 North?
It's doable. I mean, there's a lot of open space and that's probably not, it's more popular. It's gained more popularity.
Right.
The 24th and 4th are by far much more. So, and it has grown in popularity. That may be a stretch.
Yeah.
So
It's just, I know sheep are not.
So you'd
Very
still
smart.
have to detour traffic through the neighborhood to go up Highway 14 then, right? Because you'd have Main and.
you talking about
Center
for
Street.
this or
Yeah,
for this,
for
any
all the
parade?
parades, for
Yeah,
the
we would
crowd.
just detour them 200 or 400
south.
because they're used to
Mhm.
going over to 400 east and down.
Right.
200 south would make more sense than 400.
What about the Shakespeare stuff in July when we have 2 parades, afternoon performances, that kind of stuff going on around there? Has that been addressed?
And I don't know. I haven't looked at that. I'm not sure what the time
I'm
frames
not
are
sure
for
what their
matinees or
schedule is,
anything
but I
like
just
that.
wondered about that.
4th
'cause
and 24th historically are always in the morning, so I don't know that there's
Yeah,
morning
that
performances
should be
that occur.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would like to see to make this work. I think this would be
I
great.
think it's good. Yeah.
Okay. So again, I'm hoping to hear back a firm commitment from the university by next week. And if you've got questions or concerns, let me know. Anyway, thank you for your consideration.
That will go on
you.
the action agenda then with the
Okay.
additional information. And with that,
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
all in favor?
I
Hi.
I think it's
Thank
well
you.
past
You get to go
Hogan's
home and have a
heroes.
happy birthday now.